there are no councillor conflicts of interest that cannot be the subject of special disclosures, and votes on motions 1 to 3 together, and then motions 4A to 4E in seriatim or separately as below and provided to the minute taker.
Thanks very much, Councillor D'Arienzo. Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Scott. So just for the benefit of the citizens here in attendance, one of the most substantive items that we're dealing with tonight is our local environment plan, which is in regards to planning controls across the Inner West. And because it's very important to deal with matters in relation to land use with precise probity, we've received advice from council officers about how to deal with that matter. And so Councillor D'Arienzo is moving a procedural motion to ensure that we're upholding our responsibilities and dealing with the matter appropriately based on legal advice. So is there anyone who wishes to discuss that procedural motion? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously, which now brings us to the disclosures of interest. And I think just because of it's such a complicated night with so many different things on the agenda, we'll just go round the horseshoe. So, Councillor Blake, did you wish to start?
Thank you, Matt. I have a pecuniary interest in item 2, Fairer Future for the Inner West, council-led alternative planning approach for new housing, due to my principal residence being within the areas identified in item 2. Due to the significant portion of the LGA that is impacted by the proposed reforms, I have made, prior to this meeting, a special disclosure in accordance with the Code of Conduct. This provides an exemption in this instance, and as such, I will remain and vote on the matter in accordance with the Code of Conduct. Thank you.
Councillor Tastan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have personally the interest in item 2, the Fair Future or for Inner West Council-led alternate planning approach for new housing due to my principal residence being within the areas identified item 2 due to the significant portion of the LGA that is impacted by the proposed reforms. I have made prior to this meeting a special disclosure in according with the Code of Conduct. This provides as exemption in this incident, and as such, I will remain and vote on the matter in according with the Code of Conduct.
Thank you for that. Councillor Atkins?
Thank you. I have pecuniary interests in item 2, Fairer Future for the Inner West, council-led alternate planning approach for new housing, due to my principal residence being within the areas identified in item 2. Due to the significant portion of the LGA that is impacted by the proposed reforms, I have made, prior to this meeting, a special disclosure in accordance with the Code of Conduct. This provides an exemption in this instance, and as such, I will remain and vote on the matter in accordance with the Code of Conduct.
Councillor Barlow?
I have pecuniary interests in item 2, Fairer Future for the Inner West, council-led planning approach for new housing, due to my principal residence being within the areas identified in item 2. Due to the significant portion of the LGA that is impacted by the proposed reforms, I have made, prior to this meeting, special disclosures in accordance with the Code of Conduct. This provides an exemption in this instance, and as such, I will remain and vote on the matter in accordance with the Code of Conduct.
Councillor Antonou? Sorry, Councillor Barlow.
It's okay. I also declare a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in item 8, Local Traffic Committee meeting, as I work in the office of Kobe Shetty MP, who in her capacity as the member for Balmain has a representative on the Traffic Committee. I will remain in the meeting during discussion and voting on the matter as her vote is exercised through a representative.
Councillor Antonou?
Thank you. I have pecuniary interest in item 2, Fairer Future for the Inner West, council-led alternative planning approach for new housing, due to my principal residence being within the areas identified in item 2. Due to the significant portion of the LGA that is impacted by the proposed reforms, I have made, prior to this meeting, a special disclosure in accordance with the Code of Conduct. This provides an exemption in this instance, and as such, I will remain and vote on the matter in accordance with the Code of Conduct.
Thank you for that. Councillor Rosidi?
I have pecuniary interest in item 2, Fairer Future for the Inner West, council-led alternative planning approach for the new housing, due to my principal residence and my principal residence of my associates being within the areas identified in item 2. Due to the significant portion of the LGA that is impacted by proposed reforms I have made, prior to this meeting a special disclosure in accordance with the Code of Conduct. This provides an exemption in this instance, and as such I will remain and vote on the matter in accordance with the Code of Conduct. Also, I have a COI disclosure. I have a pecuniary interest in respect of item 2, our Fairer Future Plan, Council's approach to new housing in the Inner West in respect to the motion 4C Haberfield, which corresponds to the office recommendations 1 Haberfield. And I've also have one for item 25, notice of motion Haberfield Business Roundtable, as I'm a business owner in Haberfield. So
Thanks.
I'll be leaving the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Rossetti. I'm going to come back to Councillor Macri. I'll go to Councillor Smith.
Chair, I have pecuniary interest in item 2, Fairer Future for the Inner West, council-led alternate planning approach for new housing, due to my principal residence and the principal residence of my associate being within the areas identified in item 2. Due to the significant portion of the LGA that is impacted by the proposed reforms, I have made prior to this meeting a special disclosure in accordance with the Code of Conduct. This provides an exemption in this instance, and as such, I will remain and vote on the matter in accordance with the Code of Conduct.
Thank you for that. I'll go back to Councillor Macri.
Thank you, Chair. I have a pecuniary interest in item 2, a fairer future for the Inner West, council-led alternative planning approach for new housing, due to the principal residence of my associate being within areas identified in item 2. Due to the significant portion of the LGA is impacted the proposed reforms, I have made prior to this meeting a special disclosure in accordance with the Code of Conduct. This provides an exemption in this instance, and as such I will remain and vote on the matter in accordance with the Code of Conduct. I have a pecuniary interest in respect to item 2, Fairer Future Plan, Council's approach, the new housing in the Inner West, in respect to motion 4, Marrickville, which correspond to the officer's recommendation. I'll be leaving when that's happening.
Thank you for that. Councillor Ferguson.
I have a pecuniary interest in item 2, Fairer Future for the Inner West, council-led alternate planning approach for new housing, due to my principal residence and the principal residence of my associate being within the areas identified in item 2. Due to the significant portion of the LGA that is impacted by the proposed reforms, I have made prior to this meeting a special disclosure in accordance with the Code of Conduct. This provides an exemption in this instance, and as such I will remain and vote on the matter in accordance with the Code of Conduct.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Howard.
I have two interests. The first is the special disclosure. I have pecuniary interest in item 2, Fairer Future for the Inner West, council-led alternate planning approach for new housing, due to my principal residence and the principal residence of my associate being within the areas identified in item 2. Due to the significant portion of the LGA that is impacted by the proposed reforms, I have made prior to this meeting a special disclosure in accordance with the Code of Conduct. This provides an exemption in this instance, and as such I will remain and vote on the matter in accordance with the Code of Conduct. I also have a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest in the Mayoral Minute on the Marrickville Parklands, as I'm a social member of the Marrickville Golf Sporting and Recreation Club. I will remain in the chamber for discussion and voting, as I have no substantive leadership, decision-making or other role in the club, and am terrible at golf.
That's believable. Councillor Clay.
I have a pecuniary interest in item 2, Fairer Future for the Inner West, council-led alternate planning approach for new housing, due to my principal residence being within the areas identified in item 2. Due to the significant portion of the LGA that is impacted by the proposed reforms, I have made, prior to this meeting, a special disclosure in accordance with the Code of Conduct. This provides an exemption in this instance, and as such I will remain and vote on the matter in accordance with the Code of Conduct. I also have a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in respect of item 2, our Fairer Future Plan, Council's approach for new housing in the Inner West, in respect of the motions 1A Stanmore and Newtown and 4B St Peters, which corresponds to officer recommendations 1U Stanmore, R Newtown and B St Peters. I will remain in the chamber and vote on these matters as my interests are sufficiently remote. In relation to item 16, new public toilets, Weekly, McNeely and Jarvie Parks, I have a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in the matter as my primary residence is in the vicinity of Weekly Park. I will remain in the chamber to vote on the matter as it is not currently clear on the exact location the proposed toilet facilities will be installed.
Thank you. I think that was the one with Councillor Bias. Can everyone hear me okay? Councillor Scott?
Thank you. I have a pecuniary interest in item 2, fairer future for the Inner West, due to my principal residence and the principal residence of my associates being within the areas identified in item 2. Due to the significant portion of the LGA that is impacted, I have made a special disclosure in accordance with the Code of Conduct, which provides an exemption, and as such I will remain and vote on the matter in accordance with the Code of Conduct. I also have a pecuniary interest in item 2, our fairer future plan, in respect of motion 4A Marrickville, and I will leave the chamber for voting on that item.
Thank you. Councillor Callan.
I have a pecuniary interest in item 2, fairer future for the Inner West, council-led alternate planning approach for new housing, due to my principal residence and the principal residence of my associate being within the areas identified in item 2. Due to the significant portion of the LGA that is impacted by the proposed reforms, I have made prior to this meeting a special disclosure in accordance with the Code of Conduct. This provides an exemption in this instance, and as such I will remain and vote on the matter in accordance with the Code of Conduct. I also have a pecuniary interest in respect of item 2, our fairer future plan, council's approach for new housing in the Inner West, in respect of the motions 4A Marrickville and 4B St Peters, which correspond to officer recommendations 1Q Marrickville and 1B St Peters.
Thank you for that. Councillor D'Arienzo.
I have a pecuniary interest in item 2, fairer future for the Inner West, council-led alternate planning approach for new housing, due to my principal residence and the principal residence of my associate being within the areas identified in item 2. Due to the significant portion of the LGA that is impacted by the proposed reforms, I have made prior to this meeting a special disclosure in accordance with the Code of Conduct. This provides me an exemption in this instance, and as such I will remain and vote on the matter in accordance with the Code of Conduct.
Thank you. The Director of Community Services and the General Manager both also have declarations to make, so I'll go to Ruth first.
Thank you, Chair. I have a significant pecuniary interest in item 2, our fairer future plan, council's approach for new housing in the Inner West, due to my principal residence being within the areas proposed for the reform. I advise council that I have not participated in the preparation of the report or discussions in relation to item 2. I will leave the meeting during discussion and voting on the matter.
Thank you. General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a significant pecuniary interest in item 2, our fairer future plan, council's approach for new housing in the Inner West, due to the principal residence of an associate being within the areas proposed by the reform. I advise council that I have not participated in the preparation of the report or discussions in relation to item 2. I will leave the meeting during the discussion and voting on the matter.
Thank you for that. And I too have declarations to make. I have pecuniary interests in item 2, fairer future for the Inner West, council-led alternate planning approach for new housing, due to my principal residence and the principal residence of my associate being within the areas identified in item 2. Due to the significant proportion of the LGA that is impacted by the proposed reforms, I've made prior to this meeting a special disclosure in accordance with the Code of Conduct. This provides an exemption in this instance, and as such I will remain and vote on the matter in accordance with the Code of Conduct. Further, I have a significant non-pecuniary interest in respect of item 2, our fairer future plan, council's approach for new housing in the Inner West, in respect of the motions 4D, Rozelle, and 4E, Leichhardt, for item 2, which correspond to officer recommendations 1N, Leichhardt, and 1T, Rozelle. This is because I have a close personal relationship with persons with property interests in Rozelle and Leichhardt. I consider this a significant non-pecuniary interest, as it is a personal relationship that does not involve a pecuniary interest for me for the purposes of the Code of Conduct, but could give rise to a perception that I might be influenced by a private interest when considering this matter. Out of an abundance of caution and in the interest of full transparency, I will leave the chamber during the discussion and voting on motions 4D, Rozelle, and 4E, Leichhardt, and the Deputy Mayor will assume the role of Chair of the meeting at that time. That concludes all of...
Excuse me, Mayor, I've got an additional declaration, sorry.
Yes.
I have a non-significant and non-pecuniary interest in item 34, the RFT 0924 print and associated tender evaluations. I have worked with many and are familiar with many of the tenders over the last several years. Out of an abundance of caution to remove any perception of a conflict of interest, I will leave the chamber for this item.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any further declarations? If not, will someone move the acceptance of those declarations? Moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Clay. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Can I ask everyone, thank you for that, and thanks for the patience of all of the citizens in the gallery. They're important declarations that needed to be made and which have been informed by written advice from council officers. Can I ask everyone to please join me in a moment of quiet contemplation? Thank you. We'll move on to the confirmation of the minutes of the meeting of the 29th of April. Is there any clarification or correction to those minutes? If not, will someone move their adoption? Moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Atkins. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. That brings us to the public forum, for which we have a number of items where there are speakers who have been registered tonight. And I'm now going to read out the list of those items. If the item that you believe you have registered to speak for is not read out now, then you need to come and let us know, because it means that something has gone wrong with your registration. Just one page. Okay, item 2, Fairer Future for the Inner West. And I'll just note that there are a larger number of speakers for and against that item than would normally be allowed for under the Code of Meeting Practice, but my experience of these sorts of planning matters is that people are actually raising different issues, so I'm going to propose that we hear from all speakers. Item 3, Post-Exhibition Urban Forest Policy. Item 8, Local Traffic Committee meeting. Item 18, Robert Street, Balmain. Item 26, Inner West Pride Walk. That's it. So I'll go to the first item for which there are speakers, item 2, and that speaker is Justin Simon of Summer Hill, who is in person.
Thanks, Mayor. The Inner West is a wonderful place to live.
Justin, just give me one tick. I don't think his microphone's on.
Testing?
No. Just give us one tick.
We good? Yes. All right, I'll say it again. The Inner West is a wonderful place to live. It's got the best public transport of anywhere in the city. The communities are very walkable, and it has a rich history built in layers by successive waves of migration. In recent decades, however, it has lost its way. As it has gentrified, those who gentrified it have started saying no to housing. The thing that made it the first home of new Australians, the cheap and plentiful homes, now no longer exists. The population today is lower than it was in 2016 when the council was first established. And yet we still hear people claim it is too crowded. The local schools that are half empty, like Marrickville Public and Kegworth, cannot possibly accommodate more students. These objections are not grounded in reality and should be tuned out. This is a scheme that will transform the Inner West over the coming decades. It is very broad, covers a lot of suburbs, and presents an embrace of apartment living. This is the only way that ordinary families without intergenerational wealth will ever be able to call the area home. It's where I have chosen to raise my 2 daughters, who came home from the hospital to an apartment and will in all likelihood come home from their Year 12 graduation to an apartment. It will make our suburbs better, denser places to live. It is thoughtful about active transport connections and new public spaces to facilitate that growth. Sydney YIMBY supports these controls as an improvement over both the transport-oriented development program and the preceding status quo. In particular, we need to be making the most of the Bankstown line conversion due to open in the near future. This takes steps towards that. The only hitch is, looking at the feasibility report the council has commissioned from Atlas Economics, it notes that the take-up rate will be very slow. They only expect 1,000 homes from this strategy through to mid-2029, when council's target of 7,800 homes is due. They only expect about 5,000 homes through to 2041. So in considering this strategy, council needs to answer the question, do they know something their economic consultants don't? Or are they planning to miss their housing target? Thank you.
Thanks very much, Justin. Next speaker is Dan Conway of Marrickville. Dan, are you here? Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councillors. My name is Dan Conway, and I would like to speak tonight in support of item 2 on the agenda, the fairer future for the Inner West, etc., etc. I represent a local community group called Marrickville Town Square. We are a group of local Marrickville locals with a big dream for our community. A brand new public space in the middle of our most bustling high street. We've been talking to people, campaigning and raising awareness about public space for the past 4 years now. So we are thrilled to see plans for a grand new public place on Illawarra Road. This is amazing. Okay, but this right here, right now, is an important moment. Great change is coming to the Inner West. And I think many of us here are both a little bit anxious and also kind of excited, possibly about different things, who knows. But we have to acknowledge that Sydney is changing. Many parts of the city are almost unrecognisable to me from when I was a teenager. And some of these changes are amazing. When I see White Bay Power Station, Darling Square, the stunning pedestrianisation of George Street, and of course the Marrickville Library, I'm blown away. We can do amazing things that work for our community. And density can be amazing. Vibrant, walkable neighbourhoods, more social interactions and cultural exchange, shops, restaurants and entertainment right downstairs, the health and psychological benefits of intergenerational contact and diverse populations living together, and creating cultural hubs that drive economic growth. So just as putting high-density apartments on the old hospital site gave us Marrickville Library, these changes unlock a world of possibilities for enormous public good. But density can also be done badly. And this is what many of us here, I imagine, are concerned about. So we need council, all of you in this room, to hold the developers to account. Yes, we're okay with density if the buildings are well built and with room for families and some are affordable and there is a pleasant streetscape with public space. Yes, we want the town square. So density is not our enemy. Density can be amazing, but we expect council to use it as a tool to get the nice things that our community wants. And what we really want is a place to sit and eat our banh mi. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. That was perfect timing. Paul Mortimer of Marrickville, in person. Paul.
Yes, it's me. Okay, so look, hi everyone. Look, Save Marrickville's been working with council for 8 years now to try and bring a new local environment plan to fruition, and here we are. We've got a draft to go to consultation with the community. So first, some real positives. We really appreciate the fact that industrial lands and employment lands are being preserved in this plan. I think that's a fantastic outcome. It's great that we're talking about having more open space in areas where there's to be uplift. Now let's talk about character, fairness and parking in that order. Marrickville Town Centre and other commercial centres with period buildings will have their character dramatically changed, with buildings on top of shop tops of 8 stories and above, along Marrickville and Illawarra roads and other areas. My understanding is that the draft design guides may provide some protection to the facades and first bays. However, those guidelines can be overruled by the Land and Environment Court or other consent authorities. And our recommendation is that it would be best to make those protections for period buildings as strong as possible to retain some of the existing character of the period town centres. I also note that heritage conservation areas in Marrickville and Dulwich Hill are going to be upzoned, so there'll be little heritage protection for those buildings, which is a great pity, but that's what's there. The title of the draft LEP is Our Fairer Future. Sydney has a rapidly growing population and a need for more housing, with a proportion of that to be built in the inner west. The argument being put is that it's only fair that more people, including recent migrants and younger people, should have an opportunity to live in the inner west. Most people understand that. When there's more high density built in an area, there are costs and benefits to all the existing and new residents in this. In this draft LEPs, those costs and benefits we believe are not being shared fairly, as the new housing will be built almost entirely in the areas of Marrickville, Dulwich Hill and Ashfield, with a small amount along Parramatta Road, not much elsewhere. I mean, we're still to see what's going to happen in the Bays District, but 2 years ago we were promised that new housing would be distributed fairly across the LGA, and look, I don't see that at this point, so I think we can do a bit more work there. The other important area around fairness is housing affordability. It's often been argued that greater housing supply will provide more affordable housing, but let's be clear that this draft LEP will not necessarily improve housing affordability in the inner west. I wish it were not so. Developers build housing so that they can sell at a maximum price for maximum profit. At the moment, we're looking at 2% of new housing to be developed to be affordable. Much more than that will be lost as the older stock is developed. If you want fairness, I suggest you mandate much higher percentages of affordable housing to be built and to be managed in perpetuity. And you might want to talk to the federal government about tax breaks on capital gains tax. And was that me?
Yes.
And as for parking, you got no parking in there. I don't know how the town centres are going to manage without it. Okay.
Thanks, Paul. Our next speaker is Philip Bull of Marrickville.
Hello, Council, and thank you for the opportunity to address you. Can I share a screen? Is that allowed? Or?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, I'll just get on with it then. Look, I'm for housing, but want to raise a specific issue and then a general concern with the current zoning proposal. My wife and 10 other strata owners own 360 New Canary Road, which is a 130 square metre site on a prominent corner in the Dulwich Hill Centre. It's a 2-storey, dilapidated 1920s shop top housing building. In 2022, the Inner West Council in its Phase 2B housing investigation actually mocked up a photo montage with an 8-storey building on our site. That's the image I wanted to share with you. We put submissions in to that process. The body corporate indicated it was ready for redevelopment. Basically, the building's falling apart. The body corporate slowed down on maintenance. No one signed up new tenants with big investments. The strata has a formal resolution that we're open to sell the building. Yet in this review, the site is in an E1 zone and it got absolutely nothing. It's still a 4-storey zone. It's still a 1.5 to 1 floor space ratio. And you know what has happened under these new controls? You put a 3-metre footway dedication in. This site's on a corner. It's got 80 square metres of frontage. The site loses 20% of its area for a footway dedication. So, I mean, I'm just querying, how did the council in the middle of a housing crisis basically overlook the biggest redevelopment site in Dulwich Hill that it's identified previously? The body corporate and the owners have actually put their hand up and said they want to do some housing, and you've basically left us with nothing, and you've taken us backward with public domain requirements. No one will touch this site. And this is the irony, because around the corner, my wife and I live in a little 300 square metre house off Marrickville Road. That's been zoned from R2 to R4. So my little site has a 23-metre height limit and a 3:1 floor space ratio. Thank you very much, but no one in my street is prepared for housing, whereas we have a prominent corner where the strata is resolved to move and you've overlooked the biggest site in Dulwich Hill. I don't get it. I mean, to me, this is sort of, how can you be credible and say you're looking for housing sites when you appear to overlook the biggest one in Dulwich Hill? And this is my general point that I want to make to the council about this housing review. It shifts density away from near station areas near Dulwich Hill and the centres, and has this new idea of shifting everything to these sort of unsuspecting sites off the main street. I don't have a problem with that necessarily, but it's not going to create housing. When you basically ignore all the people that have been preparing to do something and shift it onto the unsuspecting, it'll just create delays and arguments. And I mean, my general point too about the centres is you have a lot of landowners in centres that are ready to move. And when I look at what you've actually given them, you've given them nothing. In 2012, you did a review of the centres, you did 6 and 8 story height limits. Not much has happened.
Remarks, please.
Okay. I think I made my point. My point is, if you want to be genuine about housing, talk to the people with the sites, put some decent sort of height limits and floor space ratios on them so they can actually move on. And how do you miss the biggest site in Dulwich Hill?
Conclude your remarks, please, Mr.
Put an 8-story building on 3 years ago. To me, it's incredulous. Thank you very much.
I encourage you to make a submission.
I already have.
Excellent. There you go. Well, you can't if we haven't opened the exhibition yet. But
well, I sent it to the office, but anyway, you know.
I'm sure we'll hear from you again.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Evan Mistilis of Ashfield.
Hi, I'm a very big supporter of increased density in our municipality, but I speak against item 2 because the upscaling has been so badly done. I'm particularly talking about the interface between the places that will be developed and the properties adjoining or across the road that will not or cannot be developed. In my own property, for example, on Carlisle Street, Ashfield, just over a very narrow rear laneway, there will be a 5-story apartment block, 19 metres high, allowed just over that fence, taking sunlight, privacy views. I am one of the lucky ones. Large swathes of Ashfield ward alone will have houses that won't be redeveloped, but adjoining properties will have 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 stories. That's really untenable for those existing residents. It traps them. They will not be able to sell their houses. Their houses will be so devalued they won't be able to sell them and buy something similar anywhere in the inner west. And nor will they be able to redevelop their own houses. The answer to this is really simple, and that is to terrace the development so that if you're going to have a property that can't be redeveloped, such as a heritage site, or something that the council doesn't wish to be redeveloped, then the next door neighbours or across narrow roads should be much lower. They 2 stories, maybe 3 stories at most. For example, just across the road from Ashfield Fire Station on Norton and Victoria Street, single dwelling house like mine, like many others, across the road, an apartment block, very good density, decent density, 2 stories with a 3rd story on top. The council planners will say that can't be done because developers aren't going to develop a site that's only 3 stories, but neighbours are very quick to get together and sell 2 or 3 sites together. A lot of neighbours might not want to do that, but at least it gives them a choice. You are going to have scores and scores of people over the next few years coming to you and saying, why did Labor and other people in council pass this LEP that forces this redevelopment on us.
Mr. Mistillis, I'll ask you to conclude your remarks.
I will conclude. If it had been terraced, as I'm recommending, people will have the choice. They'll be able to sell.
Mr. Mistillis, I'll ask you to conclude your remarks, please. Thank you for that. Just in regards to your comment regarding Labor, I'll note that the New South Wales Planning Act and Local Government Act requires that councillors do not hold a binding party caucus on planning matters such as the one that you're referring to. Okay, Amanda Bailey from the Faith Housing Alliance.
Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor and councillors. I'm here tonight to express Faith Housing Australia's support for item 2 and thanks for Council's genuine partnership and commitment to our shared goal of providing more social and affordable homes for people without options in the private market. Through the endorsed principle and the proposed provision to incentivise social and affordable housing on faith-owned land, Inner West demonstrates its leadership in innovative solutions to the housing crisis. Inner West is at the forefront. As the first council in New South Wales to explicitly encourage not-for-profit, faith-based organisations and faith-based community housing providers to activate underutilised and disused land for its mission purpose. Our members are committed to delivering more projects like Nightingale Marrickville from Fresh Hope Communities, and the proposed provision could help to activate some of the 51 sites identified by our members, 30 of which are within 800 metres of a train station. Our members envisage housing alongside community facilities, worship spaces, and with connection to community services. Since I last spoke to you, our members have been in discussion with council staff, and I would like to acknowledge Simone Plummer and the strategic planning team who have continued to engage with us to review specific sites and to work creatively together, which has led and helped to inform the proposed flexible provision. There are still opportunities to ensure that the proposed provision delivers the intent of your groundbreaking vision, and we will continue in our partnership to make a submission during the exhibition period to suggest small but important changes to support your target of 1,000 new social and affordable homes. The provision should not be limited to Tier 1 community housing providers. Otherwise, many of the partners who will help you to realise this housing, such as Fresh Hope Communities, Salvo's Housing and Anglicare Sydney, will be excluded. Again, I want to recognise the journey that Council has been on, the lessons learned from hard-won housing successes like Nightingale Marrickville. Your vision for a fairer future is already sparking conversations with other councils who are looking to your example and approaching us for similar partnerships. We look forward to our continued partnership to deliver more social and affordable housing in the Inner West. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Next, we have Tom Watson of Dulwich Hill, who's online.
Hey, can you hear me all right? I just want to start by saying long-time listener, first-time caller. So this is fun. This looks like that radio's dying, so it's my last chance. This looks like the housing strategy the community's been asking for a while now. It's balanced, one that acknowledges that the Inner West needs to grow, and it aims to accommodate our new neighbours with more than just apartments, but with new public space, more sustainable transport choices, community services, etc. So I'm particularly happy to see the provision of new public spaces being considered as part of the plan, especially new public plazas in Dulwich Hill and one in Marrickville that a previous speaker mentioned. These spaces will be incredibly valuable for building community connections and making our neighbourhoods even better places to live and go out and connect with other people. As someone who loves getting around by bike, I'm also really excited to see cycling and active transport be a critical part of the considerations. You know, we don't have enough space in the Inner West for everyone to get around by a car. And when more people choose to get around without a car, just everything's nicer. So very excited to see this happening, and I'll be putting lots of comments on your say when it comes around. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Tom. Daniel Buckmaster of Ashfield.
Good evening. Thank you for all the work that has been put into this process and this plan, and for the chance to speak on it tonight. I'm speaking on behalf of Sydney Co-Housing. We're an incorporated association representing Sydney and Inner West locals. Our members' experiences range from young professionals being gradually priced out of the city to those who have or are currently experiencing homelessness, and those suffering from extended social housing wait lists. And many of us, of course, live in the Inner West, and we love it here. We love this place, and we want the Inner West to keep being all the good things it is and more so. Look, we support the exhibition of this plan. We look forward to submitting our detailed feedback along with many others. We want to wholeheartedly echo the Mayor's support for not-for-profit housing solutions for essential workers and lower-income residents, and the involvement of CHPs to deliver much more than the 2% minimum requirement for social housing. However, we urge councillors to consider that alongside social housing, which is essential, and more market delivery of housing, there's a missing middle that are being priced out of inner city councils like ours. We have concerns that this plan lacks three important ways it could address long-term affordability and quality. So one, there's not only a housing affordability crisis, but a loneliness epidemic, including among our ageing neighbours. We would urge council to consider ways to incentivise co-housing approaches that support community connection, ageing in place, and cost of living benefits by more sharing of resources. Second, we think council should consider alternative ownership models, such as community land trusts and at-cost limited equity housing cooperatives, as part of fostering a non-market private housing sector. This approach has been endorsed by the City of Sydney Council, but they haven't really acted on it yet, so there's a chance to get in ahead. And overseas experience from North America to England to Europe has shown that it is a way to promote long-term affordability and security with comparatively less government funding. Finally, we would love to see council encourage community-led housing development rather than relying only on developer-led and CHP-led projects. This will involve ongoing engagement and support for community groups like ours, but we know that people want the kind of sustainably constructed, mixed-use, long-term affordable developments that council wants. We, the community, can help you deliver it. So once again, thank you for the opportunity, and we hope to speak soon.
Thanks, Daniel. So that was all the speakers for item 2. Moving on to our next item for which we have speakers is item 3, the post-exhibition of the urban forest policy. And we have two speakers, one speaker against, 2 for. Tim Luckett from Enmore is our first speaker who is speaking against, and Tim is online. Do we have you, Tim?
Hi, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm speaking on behalf of Australian Conservation Foundation Inner West. We have nearly 500 members. I note the Council's response to the exhibition on this policy, noting that most issues will be delivered in the strategic action plan and the changes to the policy, but that's really not evident from the documentation provided for the meeting tonight. Indeed, most of the items listed as being fed back by community members don't seem to have been integrated. Most importantly, the most common request, which was around including a specific canopy target in the policy. The response differs to the Council's Community Strategic Plan 2036, but if you look at that strategic plan, it actually just indicates that tree canopy should be maintained and increased. There's no mention of a specific target. It does acknowledge that in 2019, canopy cover was 22% in the Inner West, And ACF Inner West has a petition with about 800 community member signatures on it, asking that the council set a specific target in line with the 40% by 2056 target for Greater Metropolitan Area of Sydney recommended by the New South Wales Government. We acknowledge that that's a Greater Metropolitan Area, and of course that includes some bushland as well, but nonetheless a target should be set that is doing our bit within the constraints of the Inner West area towards that goal for the Greater Sydney area. I think many of the other items requested by the community could be taken care of with view to that target, and also acknowledgement that we should be, wherever possible, retaining mature trees rather than trying to remove and offset those with new plantings, which is the concern raised by the current policy, and it leaves clear loophole whereby that might happen, thereby removing trees that are providing the most important services in terms of cooling, shading, carbon capture and storage, etc. Those are the large mature trees, along with, of course, the biodiversity benefits of those, which are far outstretch any new plantings for many, many years. So I think that just about covers it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tim. Our next speaker on this item is Anne Markham of Marrickville, who is speaking for and is also online. Do we have you, Anne?
Yes, you do, Mayor. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. With the urban forest policy of the council being discussed tonight, I thought it a good opportunity to note my recent experience dealing with the council with regards one tree on our property. We have a large blueberry ash causing plumbing issues throughout the property. It has also broken through a fence which is shared with the property next door. In November last year, I started the process of request for removal of the tree via our strata management. When this was lodged, the only additional item that was requested was a report from an arborist, which we submitted. We finally received a reply on the 10th of February saying our application had been knocked back, noting there is insufficient evidence to support removal of the tree. No mention of what other evidence would be helpful. We requested a reassessment and included other details. A month later, it was again refused with no information from the council. I then sent all information to a councillor, hoping for some further direction. Almost 2 months later, just last week, a response was sent back noting that the application had been refused because the report was not prepared in accordance with the council's development fact sheet and did not contain a sewer diagram. After 6 months of backwards and forwards, this was the first time that we had been advised that we were missing vital documentation. I, along with other owners, feel like we have been disregarded by the council. I don't understand why this wasn't pointed out when the first submission was knocked back. I could have completed this months ago. We've spent over $4,000 on plumbing and are yet to repair the fence as it is shared with the adjoining property and continues to be damaged by the tree. The review panel deemed that the spend so far is a reasonable cost of repairs. I wonder how much does constitute unreasonable? At what stage does the cost of repairs impact the outcome? In summary, we have been dealing with the council since November 24, over 6 months, and have only just been advised to refer to the council's development fact sheet. It is disappointing it has taken this long, and I feel very let down by all the various processes. This is causing a great deal of anxiety for myself and the families who live adjacent to the tree, and the ongoing costs are of great concern to all owners. I believe the council have a duty of care to ensure the safety of those families, and if the tree continues to grow as it is and interfere with the fence, it could result in injury to those nearby. If a request such as this is not backed by council, it is reasonable to expect a full explanation. I feel like there is no concern or no engagement being shown by the people I've dealt with, either for the physical or mental problems this is causing. The last knockback was not even sent to me out of courtesy. Perhaps even meet with me so there is a full understanding of the property. We have never been asked to document information about the dozens of trees and plants we have planted at the property, which, under the urban forest plan, should be congratulated and encouraged. During this process, there has been some surprisingly flippant comments made by council. This is an isolated problem which I would expect the council can assist with. However, it continues to cause great concern and anxiety over the more than 6 months. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you, Anne. I really appreciate that feedback, and it's really important that we hear that. So thank you so much for your time and consideration in giving those comments through to us tonight. Our final speaker on this item is Bill Mavrodis. Apologies for the pronunciation. Who is here in person to speak for the item from Dalit Shell.
You pronounced my name correctly, so it's okay.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm talking in regards to 1014 Terry Street. Now, previously the Waratah Mills was a running flour mill. The trees were on a frequent maintenance plan to ensure that there were no overhanging branches as the council and the Waratah Mill workers took responsibility of pruning the trees and that were planted on their property. When the mills were sold and converted to units and managed by strata, they have not been maintained at all. I am simply requesting that the trees can be maintained frequently, that there is a maintenance plan because it's quite dangerous at the moment, and I'll let you know more about that. So the trees are actually overhanging over Windsor Road, and all the residents are very stressed at the moment. It's affecting our mental health and our well-being. It's been going on for a very long time. All the neighbours keep talking about it. We can't put our animals in the backyard because branches keep falling down. Anyway, currently the tree branches have reached the back of our residential roofs on Windsor Road, which is a major concern, particularly during storm and strong wind hazards. We have to sweep and collect the leaves frequently, so we don't even have any grass in our backyard because the trees that are growing from Terry Road is overhanging, and it's actually we can't grow grass there, and it's quite depressing. Our dining room, lounge room, doesn't have any light coming through from the backyard because of these trees. It's becoming exhausting and expensive to maintain the constant cleaning. Now, we don't even get our yard regularly trimmed, the grass. But what's happening is we're just getting the leaves cleaned regularly, and it's getting really expensive and really annoying. And communicating with the council and strata, all we keep getting is talk to strata. We talk to strata, you need to talk to council. We're trying to agree with both of them. We've had lawyers that live in Windsor Road who have tried to get into resolving this issue, but it's been really hard. Hang on a sec, I'll just try to keep going with this. Oh, really? Okay. There is a lack of sunshine in our backyards when the trees, and we can't even dry the clothes. Bats keep, I'm just going to say, pooing on the clothes. Okay, it's that disgusting. And we've been going on about it for a very long time. There's been an accident where the tree has fallen on Terry Street and it's broken some cars and the power line. So it's become a real safety issue, especially for Windsor Road. We've been there for over 50 years, a lot of us, and the residents on Terry Street, they've just had one tree that's collapsed, and now this has gone to council. We've been trying to do this for a very long time.
I'll ask you to conclude your remarks, please, Mr. Mavrodis.
Sorry, what was that?
I'll ask you to conclude your remarks, please.
Okay, I'm agreeing with the current trimming of the trees that has been put through. But we're not aware of what's happening on our side, and I want a maintenance plan, and I
understand, and you're more than welcome to speak to any of the council officers who are here in attendance, or the councillors, but your time has expired.
Okay, no worries, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I understand we've got one more resident tonight who attempted to register to speak to this item. That's Rennie Holmes of Ashfield. Rennie, do you want to come forward?
I registered on Thursday online. And I registered on Sunday online.
Okay. Well, would you like to come forward, Rennie, or not?
Thank you.
Mayor Byrne and honourable members of council, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
I stand before you today not just to discuss the proposed urban forest policy, but to advocate for a safer, more secure, and ultimately more harmonious coexistence between our community and the vital green canopy that surrounds us. I commend the Council for taking this crucial step forward in addressing complex issues of urban tree management. The policy rightly identifies critical areas for improvement, including reducing risks, managing infrastructure impacts, selecting appropriate species, and acknowledging past shortcomings. However, while the framework is sound, we must not underestimate the urgency and very real cost of inaction. How many more lives must tragically be impacted before we take decisive and comprehensive action? Consider the stark reality of the lemon-scented gum. In the past year alone, 2024, this seemingly benign tree has linked to deaths of 10 individuals, 10 families shattered, 10 preventable tragedies. As reported by ABC News in 2024, these deaths have prompted urgent calls for heightened safety awareness, a clear indication that the current situation is simply unacceptable. We remember Alex Oates, a young man whose life was tragically cut short while sleeping in a swag crushed by a falling gum tree. And let us not forget the landmark case of Gordon Timms. The New South Wales Supreme Court of Appeal unanimously held Shoalhaven City Council liable for his death when a spotted gum fell on his home. This isn't just about preventing tragedies, it's about acknowledging and learning from the past. Beyond the devastating human cost, we must acknowledge the significant impact on our infrastructure. This leads to the costly repairs and disruptions for our community. Therefore, as we move forward with this crucial urban policy, I trust the Council has considered budget implications for tree restoration works where needed and potential compensation claims to all manner of harm or damage caused by offending trees. This is not assigning blame, but acknowledging the inherent risks associated with these certain tree species, particularly given that the documented issues and established Australian standard AS 2303 from 2018. This policy must consider supporting claims where damage is caused to vehicles, buildings, property, as well as instances of injury or tragic loss. Specialised tradespeople have already identified instances where infrastructure damage has occurred due to failure to meet these standards. In conclusion, I firmly stand by the policy and the size index calculation. I sincerely hope that its implementation will prevent heart-wrenching tragedies and costly damages we have witnessed, ensuring the storage of 2024 and the lessons learned from Gordon Timms become relics of a less proactive past.
Thank you, sir. What was your name? I didn't catch
Cole
it.
Ganderton.
Thanks very much, Cole.
Thank you.
Rennie, did you want to address the meeting?
Good evening. My concern with the urban forest plan is trees in heritage or conservation areas aren't given the same rights as trees in non-heritage or conservation. If you have a tree that is dead, dying, causing mischief, next to healthy trees, fine. But if you're in a heritage or conservation area, you have to put in a DA. You have to lodge a DA. Level 5 arborist, engineer's report, all these other reports. It's costing $500 just to get started, apart from going through council. When it came the other day for this one, been dead for ages. And when the notification came out to the neighbours, all it said was removal of 3 trees. Didn't say they were dead. Didn't say they were dying. Ridiculous. These ones have been dead for 3 years. Yet the person had to put in the application in, they put it in November last year because they've been trying to talk to council and get some reasonable answers. and it wasn't approved till February to remove the trees at a huge cost because of the position of where these trees were. Why is a heritage and conservation area property treated differently to any other? Go to the tree DCP and have a look. Every comment, it says, yes, you can do this, but not if you're in a heritage or conservation area. Yes, you can do that, but not unless you're in a conservation area. Please use all houses, treat all houses the same. The trees don't discriminate. The trees don't know that they're in a heritage or conservation area. And when they were first planted, these trees, they weren't in a heritage or conservation area. They were only put in 2013 when council decided to do the new the LEP back then. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rennie. The next item is item 8, Local Traffic Committee, and the speaker is Naomi Dale Wilson of Leichhardt.
Thank you. I'm here today to voice my strong support for the proposed changes to Myrtle Street in Leichhardt to make it a 10K shared zone and line-marked parking bays. It is a narrow street and cars are parking on the footpath and pedestrians are getting pushed onto the street. Over the past 5 years of living on Myrtle Street, the number of near misses, incidents of driver aggression and frightened pedestrians I've witnessed on this street are deeply concerning. I have personally assisted parents with prams to help avoid accidents. I've had elderly people from the community. I've helped kids going down to the basketball court and helped them so they would not get hit by cars. I'm a parent of 2 young boys and I know firsthand how hazardous the current street conditions on Myrtle Street are. The street has high pedestrian traffic because it's home to parks and local daycares around the area and Hawthorne Canal. Myrtle Street is a narrow street and has no clear footpath for us to walk through. And it's forcing our pedestrians to go down on the road and cars are speeding down because it's also a rat run for all the local vehicles. This has been a safety for a really long time on Myrtle Street and from the people from the community. A petition back in 2022 placed on street poles just for 2 weeks with a QR code gathered 71 signatures of people wanting change and for the safety of the street. It wasn't a door knock, it was people actually going onto the poles and getting the QR code and signing that they want to be safe on Myrtle Street. I respectfully urge the council to approve these plans that they've got in place and secure the funding to make this happen with the budget to ensure the safety of the community and reduce the likelihood of accidents before it's too late. Thank you.
Thanks, Naomi. Next, we have item 18, Robert Street, Balmain. The first speaker is Tim Hand of Balmain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and fellow councillors. I'd just like to commence by acknowledging Council's ongoing support for active transport in this municipality. The Greenway project and more recently the Mode Shift implementation forum are outstanding examples of it. And it's interesting to sit here tonight and see how active transport is an underlying theme for a lot of the concerns of the local residents. Essentially, I agree with the item in the report on Robert Street Laneway. But my plea to Council tonight is for the urgency for its implementation. I note in this report that Council does recognise that Robert Street is an essential link for cyclists and pedestrians from the Balmain Peninsula, which leads to the city in all points south and west. Robert Street is arguably, however, one of the most unnecessarily dangerous roads on the peninsula. Cycling or walking around parked vehicles, abandoned boats and trailers and emergent traffic is a really high-risk activity. The weekly bike bus I help coordinate invariably encounters these dangers, which is a great deterrent for a lot of the people on that bike bus who are novice cyclists. But to avoid Robert Street means running the even more notorious Mullen Street. Similarly, pedestrians are also frustrated negotiating the purported pathway on the northern side of Robert Street. Better access along Robert Street should therefore be seen as a high priority and not delayed. A cycle pathway along Robert Street to Buchanan Street will be a very visible symbol of, in this instance, Council's commitment to a more sustainable and inclusive future. I would therefore urge Council to recognise the importance of a permanent solution for a pedestrian cycle laneway and immediately schedule for the design phase to be presented at the next Council meeting, as well as bringing forward, 1, a proper consultation process with the community and other relevant stakeholders. 2, that the preliminary design and funding strategy be brought back to Council no later than October this year. And thirdly, implement time-paid parking along Robert Street. I'm a 70-year-old cyclist, so I'm hoping that this time next year I can invite you all to come and celebrate the new laneway in Robert Street. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Next speaker is Keith Stollard of Balmain.
Good evening, Mayor Byrne and councillors. My name is Keith Stallard, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Sustainable Transport Group of Climate Change Balmain Roselle. We are a community association with more than 900 members and supporters. I brought my partner's wheelchair here as a visible reminder of how essential the Robert Street shared path is. Robert Street is one of the main entrances to the Balmain Peninsula. It links thousands of residents to the White Bay Power Station, the Roselle Parklands and the Anzac Bridge. It is also the pedestrian route for cruise ship passengers with their luggage. There are no viable alternatives. The road is exceptionally wide. Its oversized lanes encourage drivers to speed well above the 40 km/h limit. Meanwhile, the footpath is narrow, cluttered and unsafe. This morning, my partner and I attended a planning function at the White Bay Power Station at the western end of Robert Street. We live a few hundred metres away at the eastern end of Robert Street, but we could not get there with the wheelchair. The footpath is simply unsuitable and walking on the road is far too dangerous. We support the recommendation to receive and note the report. However, we are very concerned to see that the report includes no concept design, no discussion of how to manage parking, no costings, no timelines, and no plan for community consultation. These are fundamentals. Approving Councillor Ferguson's February motion started this process. Let us now do what is needed to move forward. Council should now develop a concept design and funding strategy so that construction can proceed at the same time as 2 imminent adjacent works: reconfiguration of the junction and new traffic signals where Robert Street meets Mullen Street, and the opening of the Southern Link shared path through the White Bay Power Station. Coordinating these projects makes logistical and financial sense. It will also minimise disruption and deliver in one sweep a safe, continuous, active transport route from the Balmain Peninsula to the Roselle Parklands and the city. Council should start community consultation, not about whether the path should happen, but about how to deliver it in the most cost-effective way. Our group has prepared a pre-feasibility study that we'll be pleased to share with Council if you're interested. This is a critical moment. The state government is investing in White Bay. Council has a strong cycling strategy. The community is asking for safer, more pleasant streets and a continuous connection to the Roselle Parklands and the city. Please receive and note the report and take the next steps now.
Thanks very much, Keith. The last item is item 26, Inner West Pride Walk, and the speaker is Rod Say of Ashfield.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on the motion that is being proposed as listed as item 26. My name is Rod, and I am a member of the LGBTQI community living in the Inner West, and I support the proposed motion. I would also like to add that I'm here to represent a specific movement or group of people within the LGBTQI community known as the Order of Perpetual Indulgence, Sydney House, where I participate. The OPI, or Sisters, have been mentioned specifically in this motion, and I thought that this might be a good time to introduce ourselves to you and to explain a little of who we are and what we're about. Our mission. As sisters and brothers of the Order of Perpetual Indulgence, we ever strive to uphold our vows to promulgate universal joy and to expiate stigmatic guilt, pledging our loyalty to public service, social activism, and spiritual enlightenment. Who are we? We are an order of Sydney-based gay male nuns and lesbian clergy who first manifested or miraculously appeared on the 14th of November 1981 from the LGBTQI+ and other communities supporting people's natural right to live and to love whomever they wish in the way that is natural for them. And for those of you with an eye to history, the first Mardi Gras was in 1978, and we as a group were formed several years later, meaning we hold a significant swathe of history that runs in parallel with that significant event. Our goal: we work towards a world where loving someone of the same sex is not a crime, nor it is a reason for shame. We wear antiquated, outdated religious habits which parody the antiquated, outdated views that are still held by some established religions and those people who propagate hatred and bigotry. Some of our regular activities. During the Mardi Gras month, the festival month, we usually open Mardi Gras Fair Day, co-host an LGBTQI-themed history walk in some part of the city, co-host a zoo walk at Taronga Zoo, and march in the Mardi Gras Parade, just to name a few. With our mission goals and our four guiding tenets in mind, we, the OPI, would welcome the opportunity to develop a closer working relationship with the Inner West Council. This motion will also be welcomed by other groups within the LGBTQI community in the Inner West. Another one that comes to mind being the Pride History Group. Between all of us who stand to benefit from this initiative, I'm sure we collectively do our best to contribute to some small way to celebrate difference, diversity, and inclusion in the wider community that is based in the Inner West. In conclusion, both I as a secular individual and as a representative of the OPI here tonight support the initiative as it stands. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks very much, Rod. That concludes the speakers from the public gallery. So we'll go to condolence motions. Deputy Mayor Howard, did you want to reference something?
Sorry, was it condolence motions? Sorry, yes. I just wanted to note the sad passing of Brother Paul Conn, who was the principal for some time at Christian Brothers Lewisham. It will be my intention to work with other councillors to bring forward a condolence motion at the next meeting. I believe that the school might want to be involved and have someone come along and speak as well. So I just wanted to note his sad passing made a huge contribution to the Inner West, and we'll be bringing forward that condolence motion at the next meeting.
Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor. There being no other tabled condolence motions, I'll move on to the one mayoral minute, which is in relation to the Marrickville Parklands and Golf Club. I note, and it's the first opportunity that we've had to do so, that the Prime Minister, the member for Grainler, was recently re-elected as the Prime Minister of Australia with a greatly increased majority. That felt pretty good to say. And one of the benefits of that for our local community is that during the campaign, he made a funding commitment that a re-elected Labor government will contribute more than $6 million to a full renovation of the Marrickville Golf Club, which is something that is very important to us because one, it's our asset, and two, so many of us have fought for so long to save that course, which was in danger of being cut in half over the course of a decade-long campaign that would have seen the destruction of the club. And I note Councillor Macri himself was involved in protecting that club over many, many years, along with myself and Councillor Howard. And so it's terrific to see that the new federal government will make such a significant investment in such a unique community asset. And everybody here knows about the Marrickville Golf Club and all the community activity that's taking place there. The fact that it's the most accessible golf course in Australia, the cheapest. It's also a community hub for all of our local sporting and recreation clubs And there's live music taking place there, essentially weekly on Saturdays on the first fairway. So to that end, the general manager met with the representatives of the club in the last few days, and I asked for his assistance in drafting this motion, which in essence will see council partner with the club in carrying out the project, and to that end engage an architect to develop the plans required to deliver the grant funding and partner with Marrickville Golf Club in facilitating detailed design approvals, project management and grant funding administration. I note that the cost for that would come from the grant that's being awarded to the club. So I don't know that I need to identify a funding source for that work, given we'll be reimbursed. But if that was necessary, we could certainly identify it through the next quarterly budget review. So I will move that way. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, just wanted to thank you, obviously, for the mayoral minute, and just to really acknowledge the leadership at the club, Andrew Ty, the president, who's just done an extraordinary job, I think, in really deepening the levels of connection and integration with the surrounding community, the residents in the surrounding community. And obviously, I want to thank the Prime Minister for this really important announcement. I did just want to note that in the announcement itself, it is really clear that the scope of this commitment really does looking at active transport links, pedestrian links throughout the parklands. And I think that's really important to acknowledge because so many local residents really do love the parklands and love the river. And it's been wonderful to see under Andrew's leadership, again, the mud crabs working so closely with the club and members of the club. There is a thriving community happening down there, focused on togetherness, belonging, on social interaction, on sustainability, and it is. I think everything that is exciting and wonderful about Marrickville is in part happening down there or reflected in what's happening down there. So that commitment really is money for the whole community, and upgrading things like the clubhouse is going to make a huge contribution to bringing more people there and to allowing other clubs to also take benefit of those improved amenities, but also to really invest in that community infrastructure and making it more accessible. So very exciting, and thank you again, Mayor, for this really important mayoral minute.
Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor. Is there any further discussion of the motion? Yes, Councillor Barlow?
I have a couple of questions, if that's all right.
Of course.
I suppose it's a question for you, actually, Chair. How do the proposed works impact on the existing plan of management for the golf course and the surrounding parklands?
Well, given that the General Manager has met with the President of the club in recent days, I'll put that question to him.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, they'll be consistent with the plan of management. We've met with the senior staff that are involved in the prep of the plan of management. That's why we're taking a lead to make sure that we get the best possible outcome.
Councillor Barlow?
Thank you. My other question is can the grant actually be used to accelerate some of the things that are already in train in the plan of management?
I'll put that question to the General Manager.
That'll be there's certain items that have been discussed as priorities, and that's a work in progress that we'll work through with the club and see what's detailed. So it's ongoing discussions to work out what we can prioritise and what we can't.
Councillor Barlow?
I have no further questions, I believe Councillor Antonou does.
Yes, I just got
Councillor Antonou?
Sure thing. So just put forward the question of when do the works for the grant need to be delivered by?
I think that's to be determined.
Yeah, it's not the time frame. Is not yet determined.
And my second question is, noting that this has been referenced, but would love just to clear some clarity. Will council staff, other than the GM, consulted by either the federal government or the relevant office on the proposal areas of the works for the grant, or has it just been a discussion between GM and the club?
I'll put that question to the General Manager.
It's been a discussion between the club, but all things were identified in the plan of management. There was a big list of works in the plan of management, and the clubs identified that, gone and sought the grant funding.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have two amends that I hope you'll consider that I've provided already.
I'll ask that they be displayed. Thank you.
To be clear, I agree with everything that's been said about the club so far. I think it is a really amazing community managed facility. It's well loved, and this grant funding is well needed and could go a long way to develop this. There are a couple of issues that I think were articulated in the consultation around the plan of management that are key to the community's mind that I just don't see articulated in the background, and it's a reason for bringing these amendments forward. Some of them includes the sewage system for the golf club, which I understand is still being on a septic tank and struggles to support current use. Other issues is around connectivity and access to the parklands, which I recognise are in the existing plan of management, and it is great to hear that that will be part of the considerations for how that grant funding will be used. But again, I think if the intent is to improve the parklands for everyone, we need to make sure and make it very clear that the work that's been done on that plan of management and the consultation that's been done with community is reflected in the works that we're putting forward. As I say, it's an incredible opportunity, a significant grant, but it'd be ideal for our entire community to have an opportunity to develop those plans together.
I think both of the amendments that you've proposed are sort of statements of fact. Obviously, by committing to undertaking the plans, there would be a report that come back to council. I don't think it's realistic to expect that that report could be prepared for next month. So if you're willing to just delete the words next meeting, next council meeting,
rather than next
yeah,
meeting.
well, like,
It's fine.
I don't think there's any chance they're going to try and skip reporting it back.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to delete to the next council meeting. That's reasonable.
Okay, that's fine. So they're incorporated. Is there any further discussion? No. Well, if not, I'll just make a brief right of reply. It is important to remember, and I hope that this is now a matter of record rather than a statement of the existing position of anyone on this council, that it's not very long ago that there was still an ongoing campaign to cut the golf course in half, despite the fact that the community had made very clear to the council that they didn't want the club or the course to be made unviable, that they considered it to be the most accessible course of anywhere in Sydney. And so this is essentially the last step in saving Marrickville Golf Course. But there's been a very significant number of people on this council in the past who didn't want to save Marrickville Golf Course. And so I welcome, if it's the case now that there's unanimous support for saving this course and for maximising the benefit of this grant from the federal government, that's excellent. But I am very wary about any retrograde step that would see us go back and re-prosecute for the 20th year in a row whether we cut the course in half, because we're not going to do that. They've got long-term tenure now, and that's the reason that we've been able to achieve this grant. So if that's the position of everyone on this council, then it's great that we've got unanimity. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? Declare that carried.
Mayor,
Okay.
I have a procedural motion I would like to move.
Deputy Mayor.
Can I please move a procedural motion to move a number of items on Globo?
You can.
I have provided a list earlier to the note takers.
Wow.
And I thank Councillor Atkins, who I'm certain will wish to second this motion.
Thank you. Are they all displayed on the screen? So it's 20 items, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to try this a bit differently. Everyone can see the motions on the screen. Does anyone have an item that they disagree with being moved on Globo? So everyone here is willing to support that motion? Just for clarity? Great. So that's moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Atkins. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Could I just ask the council officers to just prepare for me a summary of the items that remain on the agenda after the adoption of that? And on behalf of all the councillors, thank the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Atkins for their work in progressing such a substantive list of items to be adopted on block.
Excuse me, while that summary is being prepared, I've noticed that, I flagged that I've moved the urgent notice of motion circulated to you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Blake is just noting that he has tabled, I don't know if I've seen it as yet, but maybe you emailed it to me, but flagged with me that he has an urgency motion for consideration at the conclusion of the business tonight. Okay, so that's been adopted. We'll move on to item 1, public exhibition draft lobbying policy. Councillor Blake.
I'd like to move this motion with some amendments that I've circulated previously.
Please do, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you to staff for progressing this this policy to the point where it can go out for exhibition. I have moved some amendments that I think make the policy more robust, and I thank Deputy Mayor Howard for his work with working with me to get this to a place where we can put this out to consultation. The amendments we've moved. Broaden the definition of a property developer to beyond just what is included in the state legislation. We've also removed loopholes that would not require necessary disclosures, or clarifying accidental or incidental disclosures are not necessarily disclosed when they don't need to be. I'm very happy that this is in a place where it can go out and will give the community confidence in its councillors going forward, particularly with a host of new development coming forward as the new LEP.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Deputy Mayor Howard. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yeah, I just want to thank Councillor Blake for working on this and for really helping to initiate this policy. I think it is so critical. We've really engaged a lot collaboratively and really grappled with some of the ways and some of the tensions that exist in a policy like this. We really want the community to have confidence that that when we are representing members of the community, whether they be businesses or residents, that's being done in the community interest. And I think this is such a positive way for us to demonstrate in every single interaction that we have with people that we are taking the community interest with us, and that is our driving interest. So I fully support these amendments and look forward to the community having their say so that we can move forward with this policy.
Thanks, Councillor Howard. I'll now put that motion. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. Brings us to item 2, Fairer Future for the Inner West. Councillor D'Arienzo.
Mr Mayor, I'm going to ask for assistance to move this motion in seriatim.
I'll just note that some of the council officers have needed to absent themselves from the room, so I'll ask the minute takers to record that. Please proceed.
Okay, I will. I'm going to commence my speech, which will be for the entire motion, including the proposed amendments, and then I think we will go into voting in seriatim. So,
just one moment.
Yeah.
So, despite the fact that we have all been briefed on this prior to the council meeting, it's really important that we get this right. So I'm just going to ask the Acting Manager of Governance to speak to us all, and for the benefit of the gallery as well, about the process that will take place with voting on this item.
Through you, Chair. So, councillors, the procedural motion grouped together 1, 2 and 3. And what you have in front of you is the number 1 that was that represents the clustering of the suburbs in respect of which councillors have pecuniary interests that form the basis of special disclosures. Excuse me. So with 1, 2 and 3, with any amendments, Councillor D'Arienzo, this could be moved as you could move this and someone could second it and voting could occur on it. You've already resolved, as per the procedural motion, to consider the remaining items in seriatim. So each of those remaining items in respect of Marrickville, Haverfield, Rozelle, Leichhardt and St. Peter's, then each require a separate mover and a seconder, and voting would occur in respect of each of those motions.
And where are they displayed on the screen?
They're not displayed on the screen yet, Chair. So this is only in relation to 1, 2, 3 with any amendments.
Well, we've got 9 points on the screen at present.
These are the proposed amendments from Councillor D'Arienzo.
So we're considering it as a separate item. Surely those amendments would still be tabled now.
Yes.
They're not tabled.
The 5 suburbs.
Yes.
That need to be for point number 1. That need to be separated out.
Correct.
Are not brought out of 1A cluster. They're
not listed on the screen.
They're not listed separately.
Yeah. So what you have in the 1A cluster, Councillor D'Arienzo, are all of the suburbs, except for Marrickville.
Yep, but where are the others? We're dealing with it as part of the same item, so where are the others listed so that they can be voted on subsequently? I want to identify for the councillors the points that we'll be voting on as a group without people needing to exclude themselves, and the points that we'll be voting on separately with people needing to uphold their disclosures previously, but they're not listed on the screen.
Sorry, Mayor, do you mean the remaining suburbs in respect of which? So they're not displayed on screen because my understanding is they're not being moved right now. Otherwise,
well, they'd be moved as part of this item, though.
They would be moved separately because otherwise all councillors would have a conflict of relation.
So it's 2 different motions?
It will be a number of different motions, 6 different motions.
We have them displayed on the screen, please. So I'm asking that the recommended motion that council officers have proposed to councillors prior to the meeting be displayed on the screen. Sure. Well, we can't proceed until it is. Would it be preferable if I adjourned the meeting momentarily? I'll move that we adjourn the meeting. It is 8:07. I'll move that we adjourn the meeting for 3 minutes and reconvene at 8:10. Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. No, can I ask you to scroll back down, please? If we could just leave it there for a moment, thanks. Okay, we've reconvened the meeting. Now, for clarity, I just want to check that all councillors have got a clear understanding of what we're voting on. Points 1 through 11 represent the motions that can be voted on block without any councillor needing to recuse themselves. And then points 12 through 16 are the specific suburbs that a variety of councillors will need to absent themselves from the room on. Is everybody clear on that? Okay, thanks very much to the staff for displaying that accurately on the screen. And I will go to Councillor D'Arienzo to speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to start by saying a sincere thank you to Simone Plummer, Director of Planning, and the Strategic Planning team. I think that we can all agree the depth of analysis, the commitment to genuine place-based planning, and the care that's been taken to balance growth with protection of local character and heritage is evident throughout this draft plan. You've run this marathon like a sprint in developing this plan, and I wanted to acknowledge and thank you for your hard work. Tonight, we mark an important milestone. Our draft Fairer Future for the Inner West Plan is ready to go out on exhibition. The draft plan is an excellent start and is the most comprehensive response to the housing supply crisis put forward by any council in New South Wales. It's grounded in fairness and social justice. It looks at how and where, over the next 15 years, 35,000 new homes could be built, ensuring that young people, renters and essential workers can continue to live in the Inner West, close to work, their family and friends, and close to their community. This is not a one-size-fits-all response. It's a place-based plan, grounded in detailed block-by-block analysis, and it's been shaped by our community. Last year, we consulted on our planning principles to guide this work, and the support we received has shaped what is being put forward tonight. This, in my opinion, is a smarter, fairer approach than what's being proposed by the state government. Rather than density in just a few areas, our plan spreads new housing across the Inner West. It's focused around transport hubs and main streets, with new buildings predominantly proposed between 6 to 11 stories. The draft plan protects heritage conservation areas and proposes new housing is located where it makes most sense, based on independent expert advice. We're using smart incentives to encourage larger, more sustainable developments.
Move an extension of time of 3 minutes, seconded by Deputy Mayor Howard. All those in favour, against, declare that carried. Please proceed.
We're using smart incentives to encourage larger, more sustainable developments, with bonuses for lot amalgamations, open space, and green building standards. The plan also protects what makes the Inner West vibrant. We're progressing new special entertainment precincts in Ashfield and beyond to support our music and nightlife economy. It protects and looks to grow employment lands to ensure that we don't just build homes, but we also secure jobs for the future. The Fairer Future plan is detailed, balanced, and grounded in community values, and it's a great start. There are, however, some adjustments and improvements to the draft plans that are the subject of these amendments on the screen. New not-for-profit housing for essential workers and lower-income residents should be our highest priority public benefit through public benefit from developer contributions in rezoned areas. The final plan should be amended to make the acquisition of new housing stock owned by council in perpetuity be achieved through developer contributions. This should be reflected in the plans that are tabled for adoption. The proposal for significant uplift in Croydon is out of keeping with the zoning proposed by Burwood Council for their section of the suburb. To that end, Council should defer consideration of any changes to planning controls in the suburb of Croydon, pending consultation with Burwood Council, to identify how to harmonise controls across Croydon. Council should note that following the adoption of this plan, we need to turn our attention to a new stage for further investigations, which will be required for certain areas. Number one, incorporating the 3,000 to 5,000 new homes that are expected in the Bays precinct led by the state government. Number two, increasing density on Parramatta Road. Number three, increasing density on main streets around heavy and light rail stations that have not examined fully in stage one. Number four, completion of the further technical investigation areas required for additional housing opportunities. And two other things, we should make available a video explainer on how to read the fairer future plan and attachments. And we should appoint a single point of contact from within the strategic planning team for councillors and members of parliament. With all of that said, it's time that we put this out to the community. From tomorrow, it will be placed on exhibition through to July, and I encourage everyone to take the opportunity to provide their feedback.
Thanks, Councillor D'Arienzo. I'd like to second the motion and to thank you for your detailed work over a long period of time with the council officers, including the Director of Planning, in helping to prepare this process. It's been very thorough, and I think you're right. We're in a position where this is a very comprehensive response to the housing supply crisis, much more so than any other council, and that's in large part because of the way that yourself and the Director of Planning have worked together. I also want to encourage all of the representatives of the community who spoke here tonight, regardless of their views, to make submissions. One thing that we're not doing with these draft plans, at least as is proposed by Councillor D'Arienzo, is trying to do planning on the run. So this is not a report from council, this is a report to council that's been developed by council officers and by planning experts according to the principles that we adopted democratically. And I don't think everything about this plan is perfect, and Councillor D'Arienzo's articulated a range of things that we will need to work on into the future. But I think it's much better just to let the community see transparently what has been proposed, not by us, but to us, and then we can make up our minds as a democratic body after the exhibition period, when we've read all the submissions, how it needs to be amended. I consider that a good process. I just want to speak strongly in support of what Councillor D'Arienzo has said about prioritising the acquisition of not-for-profit housing for council as part of these proposals. Under what was proposed by the consultants, the range of public benefits that could be achieved or should be prioritised from developer contributions didn't include the acquisition of affordable housing. And that's not my view. I don't think it's the view of Councillor D'Arienzo. I hope it's the view of this council unanimously, having all looked at it individually, that we do want to prioritise the acquisition of not-for-profit housing. And with the scale of the plans that are being proposed, that could be quite a significant portfolio. And it's the scale, it's the density that actually allows that to happen. So I'm strongly in support of that component of the motion that's been proposed by Councillor D'Arienzo. And I really want us all to work together to make sure that the community engagement that will take place starting from tomorrow is meaningful, is positive, is focused on addressing the problem that we need to, the housing supply crisis, but also on including as many voices as possible about how we can make these plans stronger and better, achieve more for social justice, make sure that they're really closely, that they're properly articulated so that we manage everything that's good, we keep everything that's good in the Inner West whilst also actually solving the problem. So I'm strongly in support of what you've said and done, Councillor D'Arienzo. Is there anyone who wishes to amend the motion or to speak against it? Councillor Macri?
Thanks, Chair. I set up some amendments I'd like Council to consider. There are many levers that we've pulled here to make this plan happen. I do thank the staff for their work, and it's actually not an easy thing to get through, and even to read for the community, it's challenging. But there are other levels of government, and those other levels of government need to pull some levers as well. And I think we should be writing, as my amendments ask, to write to the Premier, where residents, we're asking them to give up their homes for redevelopment, and they're attached to those homes, and it's difficult. they might not be able to stay in the same area. It depends on how it works out for them, what sale price they get. But I believe they're contributing something for the greater good. I think the Premier should be looking at waiving stamp duty for the owner-occupiers, the residents, who are actually having to give up their homes. So it eases the burden on them finding another home. I don't know how I would feel having to move out of my home, and it would send me into a sheer panic. And I don't want that burden on the community. If we could ask the actual Premier if he could consider that to assist us in actually dealing with the housing crisis. The second one is to write to the Prime Minister. One of the big stumbling blocks will be capital gains tax, where people see no upside. They have property and there's no incentive for them to actually sell the property or be part of a development that will deliver something better. If there could be a capital gains incentive put in to actually assist them in actually a sweetener so they could actually move and we can consolidate bigger lots, better properties and deliver better outcomes to the community. Those are the things I'd like if the council's of a mind to support that, to write to the Prime Minister and the Premier.
Thanks, Councillor Macri. There's certainly separate amendments, but can I ask, just so we'll debate the first one first, what are you referring to in regards to residents giving up their principal place of residence?
When a resident's living in a house and the developers have come and they are selling to actually be part of a development, they're going from a house and it's going to become, or even a unit, and it's going to be redeveloped to get more housing.
You're referring to people who choose to sell their property to a proponent.
Then they have to go look for a new home, and then they're hit with another burden of actually having to pay stamp duty.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Is there a seconder for that amendment? Seconded by Councillor Rosidi. Do you wish to speak to it? Okay, I'll speak briefly against the amendment. I understand the point that Councillor Macri is making, but the simple fact is, and I think we should all be really clear on this with the community, in areas that are proposed for rezoning, the property owner, if they choose at some time in the future to sell their home, then by definition, they are likely to achieve a higher value for that home than they would have otherwise. No one is going to finish behind in those zones, and I don't think it's the role of the council to be proposing an additional tax concession for people who choose to sell their homes in those circumstances. So I'm against that amendment. We'll discuss it. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to it? Councillor Blake?
Yeah, we can't support this motion. There are several ways to radically accelerate housing prices, and waiving stamp duty is one of them. And so we'll just make the housing affordability crisis even worse. So we'll be voting against that one.
Further discussion of the Macri-Rosidi amendment? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? That's 2 in favour. All those against? That's 13 against. That has been defeated. We'll move on to the second amendment from Councillor Macri. That council write to the Prime Minister to ask for consideration of capital gains tax incentive as an incentive to assist the consolidation of property to deliver more housing. Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Rosidi. Do you wish to speak to it? Okay, I'll speak briefly against that. Look, we're taking plans that have been developed by independent experts and we're putting them out onto public exhibition unamended. This is not a forum for us to start hypothecating about the federal tax system. That's, to be blunt, above our pay grade. And we're trying to do something quite big here in regards to something that we are responsible for, which is the local planning and the delivery of housing in our local community. And on that basis, I want to invoke the sentiment that Councillor Macri has expressed so often in this chamber, that we should stick to local issues. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to the motion? Councillor Blake?
Thank you, Mayor. I disagree with you about the argument about hypothecating taxes and advocating for them. But however, we are on the same side as this and can't support this. This is the fastest way to increase property prices. When the capital gains tax discount was introduced, that's when we started soaring property prices soar. If there's one single thing that will make housing even more unaffordable in the Inner West, it's this proposal. So we'll be voting against it.
Okay, thanks for that. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to the amendment? If not, I'll go to Councillor, sorry, I should have done this on the previous one, Vic. I'll go to Councillor Macri for a right of reply.
Yeah, I am concerned about the numbers in the actual feasibility report, and if we don't move the ground or make the ground easier to people to move to deliver these houses, the report says that they're 10%. We're going to struggle to achieve those targets. One of the speakers already alluded to that, and I think people, when they give up their homes, I think they should be compensated in some way, to a lesser sum if it's an investment, but I think it's going to be a hard sell based on what we're doing. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. I'll put that amendment. All those in favour? That's 2 in favour. All those against? 13 against. That has been defeated. Any further amendments to the motion?
Mr Mayor, can I just speak in favour of the original motion?
Yes.
Just very briefly, I just wanted to speak to the amendment that defers consideration of any changes to planning controls for Croydon. This is because Croydon is split across 2 councils, which is the Burwood and Inner West Council. It's vital to the Croydon community that we apply consistent zoning controls across the suburb and not have one set of rules for East Croydon and another for West Croydon. Like many other suburbs in the Inner West, Croydon has a really strong sense of community, and this amendment ensures that Inner West and Burwood councils work together to harmonise the zoning across the suburb to maintain the identity and connection across the suburb, but ensure that we have the increased density and housing to enable younger people, renters and essential workers to live in the community they love, and also allow our children and grandchildren to remain living locally.
Thanks very much, Councillor Carlisle. Is there any further amendment to the points 1 through 11?
Chair, I just request to speak to the motion in the interest of us working together on this.
Yep.
Thank you.
Councillor Antonin?
Yeah. So look, this plan is a vast improvement on the state government's approach, and I want to commend the staff for their hard work in such a short time frame. That is a testament to what can be done when local knowledge and expertise are at the forefront. So let's not stop here. We now know what the opportunities are across the LGA, up to 35,000 of them. And if everyone in this chamber is serious about a fairer future, it is now up to us to be bold and during this exhibition and work with the community, because we know that the private housing market alone isn't going to deliver genuine affordability or livability. So I'm very excited to work with community during this exhibition period to break the system's assumption that supply will automatically ease cost pressures. Artificial scarcity, land banking and investors obscure this formula, we know. And Anglicare's recent renter report tells us that currently in the Inner West, there are 0 affordable rental properties for someone on minimum wage. Despite there being an increase in rental properties over the last year, rentals have not become more affordable. So I am glad to see these additions and the push for us to step back in, as all levels of government need to, and use this plan and the tools available to us to ensure that we're building homes, not investment portfolios. And look, that also means setting affordable housing contributions higher than 2%. I've said it before, I'd love a number like 30. It's what we're seeing in the UK. And we can get creative and have councils provide housing identified in this plan across our service centres, like councils used to, like other countries do. And point 6 of Darienzo's amendments actually is a step towards that, which I'm very excited about. During this exhibition, we need to be pushing the New South Wales and Fed government to understand their role in investing in infrastructure to match our growing community. We've already been hearing people's concerns about the need for certainty on green space, active transport, a need for climate-ready suburbs.
Move an extension of time for 3 minutes.
2 should be fine.
Do you require 3 minutes?
No, 2.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Barlow, seconded by Deputy Mayor Howard. All those in favour, against, declare that carried.
A need for climate-ready suburbs and a rightful suspicion of an over-reliance on the goodwill of private developers looking to make bank. The next few weeks of exhibition is crucial for this plan. We can bring about housing justice that looks after our community, renters, young people, low SES, people with disability, essential workers, and First Nations communities. We need to be accountable to those who will be the first to be pushed out if we simply get out of the way and let the private market do what it wants. So this is going to be our point of difference. We've identified 35,000 opportunities. That's 35,000 opportunities that we're going to be pushing to be used to reinvest in the community and make sure that this LGA is an accessible place to live rather than an exercise in bolstering developers' profits. As said, we need to hold Debs to account, and I'm looking forward to a solid, engaged consultation period. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Antonou. Councillor Scott.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to this plan, which is really exciting. 35,000 new homes being planned for in the Inner West is an absolute thrill to me. And I really want to speak briefly in very strong support of point 9 of Councillor D'Arienzo's amended motion, which is about the work that we do in a future stage 2 of the Fairer Inner West plan. Now, those of us who represent the north side, not blessed with heavy rail stations, are not as blessed in this plan with more housing. And I'm really looking forward to a future where we are. There are a number of sites that were not able to be fully considered in the stage 1 plan because the staff who were working incredibly hard weren't able to complete some technical studies that they needed to in order to make them, pencil out for this report to us. And I'm really glad that we are committing to a full investigation of those studies in a stage 2 that hopefully won't take too much longer. We also need to really go harder on Parramatta Road. If not there, then where? I've said it so many times before, and I really mean it. We need to be looking beyond the 6 stories that we already know is not viable. It's already zoned for 6 stories. If that was viable, we'd be doing it now. And to look at something that is more bold for Parramatta Road. And we also need to do more work on some of our key main streets as well. We need to go back to Norton Street, to Marion Street and to Crystal Street and to have a look at what we can do there and around our light rail stations, which is also effective and rapid transport that is improving every day to take lots of people around our community and into the city. So in addition to the really great work that is presented here before us on the heavy rail stations, the big uplift that is proposed for Bays West, I am also excited about putting more supply into the middle of the LGA north of Parramatta Road through a further investigation in a stage 2 of the Fairer Future Plan.
Thanks very much, Councillor Scott. Deputy Mayor?
I just also want to add my voice to thank the staff too. This has been a really incredible effort, and we know and we see just how much diligence, care and effort you've put in, and we thank you sincerely and wholeheartedly. I also want to acknowledge and thank all of the public speakers who made a contribution this evening. Look, I think a key tenet of life in the Inner West is that we're diverse and that we're welcoming, and I think that we risk that if we don't act now to ensure we deliver homes for people from all across our society to live in. This is about equity and this is about social justice. That does mean increasing housing supply and looking at whatever levers we hold to ensure we're delivering a mix of quality, well-located, well-designed, well-built and sustainable homes that reflect all the different ways people in our community want to live, including families with young children, seniors, and multi-generational homes too. We have a lot of work to do in that space. It also means providing opportunity for young workers and key workers to live in our suburbs. Now, no LEP and no plan for planning can get it all right, and there will be changes to this plan. I think it's really important that we acknowledge that we do want to see evolution here in this change. It's also a fact that there'll be elements of the LEP that are contested. That's a good thing. We have a journey to travel together. That's why it's so important we hear back from the community and that as many people as possible share their view from all across the local government area. We know that this is a conversation we've been having in Marrickville for a very long time, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from residents about these plans. I just wanted to spend a second just to give a special tribute to Councillor D'Arienzo. She has worked so hard over so many meetings, over so many years to ensure that our engagement with the community is as full as we can be. I know that that's what makes her tick, and I just am so passionately grateful for everything you have done to make sure our community gets to have their say. I also welcome the amendments you flagged tonight, just 10 seconds.
I move an extension of time of 1 minute.
Okay, thank you.
Seconded by Councillor Scott. All those in favour, against, declare that carried.
Thanks. I welcome the amendments from Councillor D'Arienzo. They speak to the additional work that needs to be done around making the housing we build affordable, and also for looking for opportunities for additional housing in suburbs that haven't been fully investigated in this initial plan. My focus tonight is on supporting the community having their say and I look forward to working together with the community to make a genuine, considered and meaningful impact on the housing crisis and building the homes we need for generations to come.
Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor. Further discussion, Councillor Atkins.
Just very briefly, I have a very simple amendment which the minute takers have which would fit in after point 2, I think, that the plan be exhibited for a minimum of 6 weeks. I think if it's going to be put on exhibition tomorrow, it's clear that there is time to ensure that people have plenty of time to read and understand what's in the plan. There'll be things that they like and things that they don't. There will be questions about why some sites have been chosen for rezoning and not others. We've heard from some of the speakers tonight about these. The documents are complex and dense, and people need time to get across them and how they affect them, including provisions for more social infrastructure, whether it's more open space, more sports fields, more schools, provision of early childhood education and care places, potentially by council, better public transport and more active transport infrastructure. I'd also like to congratulate staff on all the work that has been done on this plan, and indeed the work they have done to make sure that we are fully informed at this stage of the planning in making a decision about putting this on exhibition. And I look forward to seeing what our community thinks about every aspect of these plans.
Thanks very much, Councillor Atkins. I'll just seek advice from the Director of Planning. I believe that your amendment would mean that the plans would need to be on exhibition up until the 2nd of July, so 6 weeks from tomorrow. And I think that is in keeping with the existing plans by the council officers. I'll just seek clarification of that.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Yes, that's correct. I think the last consultation offering will be the 3rd of July, and that the Your Say page will remain open for 3 days thereafter to the 6th.
Well, minimum of 6 weeks. You're happy to incorporate that, Councillor D'Arienzo? That's incorporated. Any further amendments? There's no further amendments. For clarity, I'm going to ask that that motions 1 through 11 be displayed on the screen so that councillors have clarity about what's being voted on at this point in time. Councillor Atkins' amendment has been incorporated, so that would be point 12, I guess. I can ask that that's displayed as well, please. Okay, does anyone need any clarification about what's being voted on now? It's the points displayed on the screen 1 through 12. They're all individual separate motions being moved en bloc, and it's moved by Councillor D'Arienzo and seconded by myself. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against? I declare that carried unanimously. Now, I'm going to ask that the subsequent motions, which will require various councillors to absent themselves while each individual motion is being voted on, to be displayed on the screen. And I'll ask that, as we're at motion 13, that all councillors who need to absent themselves for the component of the plan related to the suburb of Marrickville, please absent themselves from the chamber. I'll note that councillors Carlisle, Scott and Macri have left the chamber. Is there a mover for that motion? Moved by Deputy Mayor Howard, seconded by Councillor Smith. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor?
No, sorry, I waive that.
Okay. Is there anyone who wishes to amend that motion or to speak against it? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? All those against? Declare that carried unanimously. Can I ask that the 3 councillors who absented themselves previously and any staff in that category be invited to rejoin the chamber? Okay. The next is motion 14, which relates to the suburb of St Peters. Could any councillor who is required to absent themselves from the chamber during that motion please do so now? I'll note that Councillor Carlisle has remained out of the chamber? Is there a mover for that motion? Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I waive my right to speak.
Okay, is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Scott. Do you wish to speak to it? Is there anyone who wishes to amend the motion? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously as well. It brings us to motion 15, which is in relation to the suburb of Haberfield. I'll ask that any councillor who needs to absent themselves from the chamber in relation to Haberfield, please do so now. I note that Councillor Carlisle has returned to the chamber and Councillor Rossetti has left the room. Is there a mover for motion 15? Moved by Councillor D'Arienzo. You wish to speak to it? Seconded by Councillor Scott. That's waived. Is there anyone who wishes to amend the motion? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. That brings us to item 16 in relation to Rozelle, which will require me to absent myself from the chamber. So I'll ask the Deputy Mayor to take over the chair.
Okay, so I note that the Mayor has left the chamber. Otherwise, all other councillors are in attendance. So can I have a mover for motion 16, please? Councillor Clay moves that. A seconder? Councillor Ferguson. Can I ask for a vote? All those in favour? That has been unanimously passed. We can ask the Mayor to return. No? Oh, okay, got it. Sorry. You can stay up there. Item number 17 is that council endorse the exhibition for the suburb of Leichhardt, and noting that the Mayor is the only councillor out of the room. Can I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Scott. A seconder? Councillor Carlisle. All those in favour? Thank you. That has been unanimously passed. Yep. I did it. Nothing broke. It's good.
So item 17 hasn't been adopted? It's not on the screen. That's the last of the motions, is it? I'll declare those motions closed, those motions adopted, and we'll move on to item 3.
Chair, could I please move item 3 with amendments that have been provided?
Yes, Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I'd like to begin by thanking the staff who've put this post-exhibition report together. I can't imagine it's been easy to amalgamate the policies of 3 separate councils. And I also want to thank all of the residents who spoke on this item during the public forum as well. We know that the responsible and sustainable management of trees and of our urban forest is one of our most important responsibilities as a council. And I know that every single one of us in this chamber values how important trees are to our local environment, our biodiversity, our wildlife habitat, and the numerous benefits that they provide to public health and amenity. And as a council, I'm really proud that we've put these values into action, commencing the largest program of public tree planting in the Inner West's history, adopting a very ambitious target of more than 1,000 new public trees planted every year. And I'm pleased to report that we've got nearly 700 planted so far in 2025. Along with our other tree planting initiatives like our microforest trial and our annual free tree giveaways. But our responsibility doesn't end with planting trees and patting ourselves on the back for our environmentalism, and nor is tree planting a cost-neutral exercise. We have a collective responsibility and a duty of care to the residents, the properties, and the public infrastructure who live under those trees. I'm sure there's not a single councillor in this place who hasn't spoken with a resident frustrated, anxious, or even afraid about a problem tree that's on or near their property. In fact, we heard some of those stories tonight. Whether it's the elderly resident who can no longer safely traverse their front yard or their footpath due to a tree that's uprooted pavers and concrete, or a household paying potentially tens of thousands of dollars in repairs over a cracked pipe or foundation, or those residents who are literally living under the threat of a tree that has simply grown too big and too dangerous for its location and is putting lives and property at risk. These are real and commonplace circumstances, and too many residents in these cases have been let down by an unnavigable rabbit warren of bureaucracy or an attitude that is seemingly unrooted in reality that prioritises preserving any and all trees over protecting people, property and infrastructure and ignoring the very real cost of inaction, as one of the speakers tonight put it. These residents deserve and need a clear, accessible and functional policy to protect and serve them.
I move an extension of time of 2 minutes, seconded by Councillor D'Arienzo. All those in favour, against, declare that carried.
Thank you. It's critical that we adopt tonight a harmonised urban forest policy across our LGA, which is clear, consistent and strikes the right balance between tree protection, responsible and sustainable tree management and community safety. And I believe that the draft policy before us tonight does strike this balance and takes a holistic approach to managing our urban canopy, including a framework for sustainable and appropriate management of our urban forest, a clear statement of resourcing priorities, a commitment to the retention and protection of suitable trees, the practical management of unsuitable or hazardous trees, and to renewal tree planting. So again, I really thank the staff for the work that they've put on this. Just in terms of the amendments I'm moving, point 1A is that we incorporate into the strategic action plan that we develop plain language material informing residents about the options, processes and response times relating to pruning and removal of trees, and that this be letterboxed to all households and provided at service centres, customer service stalls and the Inner West Sustainability Hub. I just think it's really important that we do everything we can to ensure that residents are educated and aware about these processes. I don't think any of them are going to read this document besides those who spoke tonight. So whatever we can do to disseminate that information in a plain language way is really important and helpful. I'm also proposing that we undertake a review of the policy in 12 months' time to assess its application and report back to Council. If there's things we need to change or that we can do better, then we should take that into account. I also want to note, as I referred to, our adopted target of 1,000 new street trees per year, reaffirming our commitment to protecting and expanding our urban canopy, and include that we prioritise new planning as part of those programs along urban roads, town centres and adjacent to play spaces, which came out of the community feedback really strongly. And that we also receive a report back on opportunities to improve maintenance and pruning of street trees, including a review of pruning schedules and our customer service responsiveness. Again, this is a really common thing that comes up that residents flag with us, and I think it would be great to get a report so we can determine if we can do better. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Smith. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Atkins. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, I also have some amendments which have been provided to the minute takers.
I'll ask that they're displayed on the screen. Noting that Councillor Atkins is the seconder for the motion and the mover of the following amendments. Do you wish to speak to them?
I'll just speak briefly. My preference would in fact be to reject this draft policy and seek to have us develop an urban forest strategy which provides a long-term vision to support decision-making and a comprehensive evidence-based framework that includes canopy targets, biodiversity outcomes, climate resilience, implementation pathways, and measurable performance indicators, and establishes clear roles, responsibilities and funding commitments. However, after discussions with Councillor Smith, and I thank her for being open to discussions to improve this policy, I've chosen to go with amendments to try and add to Councillor Smith's amendments to improve what we have in front of us. I think the amendments I have put speak to themselves. They reflect what many of the community have asked for us to do. So I commend those amendments to Council.
Thanks very much, Councillor Atkins. If there's no further amendment to the motion, I'll put that. Oh, sorry, that's incorporated, is it, Councillor Smith? They're incorporated into the primary motion. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. Item 4, new residential development panel.
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor D'Arienzo.
Thank you. I thank the staff for bringing this forward again this month. I propose a couple of minor amendments. I just wanted to see if they're available on the screen. Thank you. So the goal, we've got this new Fairer Future plan coming down. We need to make sure that internally we are set up so we've got a nice, clean, streamlined process that deals with new residential developments as quickly and as easily as possible. Our goal here is keys indoors. So the amendments that I'm proposing is, number one, that the panel report comes to Council on a quarterly basis, that Council creates a dashboard so we are able to measure and track our progress, and that Council brings back a report on what that new dashboard might look like, and that in 12 months' time, Council undertakes a review of the terms of reference to make sure that this is an effective and efficient process. We'll note to the minute takers, I've sent an updated version via email of the amendments.
Is that not reflected in what's tabled on the screen at the moment?
Not at the moment.
Okay, can I ask that is that most recent wording is displayed? Okay, is that clear for everybody? So it is that 20 would be struck out and replaced with 5, is that correct?
That's right.
Well, I don't think that requires 20 to be listed at all.
There we go, thank you.
Thank you. That becomes the substantive motion. I'm happy to second that motion and wish to speak very briefly to it. I want to be really clear and explicit about the fact that our own development assessment system is one of the potential obstacles to us addressing the moral issue that is housing supply and affordability in this community. We have a long way to improve. We have fantastic staff, but along with the planning sector generally, as dictated by the Planning Act, which is extraordinarily complicated and doesn't actually list the supply of housing as one of its objectives. The whole sector needs to improve significantly. And I think we have to take responsibility for doing that at this level. It's difficult for the councillors because we're all legally removed from development assessment, but the community rightly expects that we insist upon high standards of service, that we try to improve processes, and that's what we're seeking to do here. But let me put it another way. In a way, regardless of what we do with our planning controls and with our plan for a fairer future in the Inner West, if we don't improve our development assessment and processing systems, it won't lead to the outcomes. We won't get the new homes that we need. So I just want to state on the public record here in this meeting with everybody in attendance that this is a real priority for our elected body. And I want to thank Councillor D'Arienzo for the work that she's done in developing the policy and really strongly encourage staff to take it very seriously and to implement it with urgency. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against the motion? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously.
Mr Mayor?
Yes.
I think we're up to item 8, the Local Traffic Committee.
That's right.
Might I please move the adoption of the Local Traffic Committee minutes with an amendment that's been provided to the minute takers?
Please do.
Thank you. This is relating to the proposed Myrtle Street shared zone in Leichhardt, which is an exciting development, and I thank Naomi Wilson for coming along to speak to it tonight. I believe it has been a number of years in the making, and I've been contacted regularly by residents on and around Myrtle Street asking when is it going to happen, and I'm pleased that we now have a budget and a design, and it looks like it's going ahead shortly. I have asked the officers to assist me and the community in agreeing to a review 12 months post-implementation of that shared zone of just the footpath parking element. As councillors and many in the community would know, there are some very narrow streets in the Inner West where footpath parking is informally a part of the streetscape, and that includes on Myrtle Street. And there has been some mixed views about whether formalising it would improve pedestrian safety and amenity. And I hope that it will, but I'd really like us to go back in 12 months' time and just make sure that that's the case.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there a seconder for the motion? So moved by Councillor Scott. Is there a seconder for the motion? If not, that will lapse. Councillor Carlisle? I'm just trying to keep things going here. Councillor Carlisle, that's seconded. She's waived her right to speak. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against the motion or to amend it? Councillor Blake?
Just have a small question. This would be the third 12-month review we've just agreed to. I'm assuming there's no implications on council workload through you, Chair.
I'll put that question to the Director of Infrastructure. Capital Works, major projects.
Through you, Chair, this can be accommodated.
Thank you for that. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. Does that bring us to item 15? Clontarf Cottage refurbishment and marketing strategy. Councillor Ferguson?
Thank you. Mayor, I do have amendments for Clontarf Cottage that are displayed on the screen in front of us. I'd like to speak to those amendments, please. I just want to thank the staff for a really detailed marketing plan for council's community venues. I'm really looking forward to seeing this put into action and hoping that we'll see an increase in usage at some of the underutilised properties across the LGA as a result. I also thank council for actioning specific upgrades for Clontarf Cottage and Balmain, including repairing the roof, installing heating and cooling, and replacing the kitchen. The amendments that I have put forward tonight are only minor, just to request a timeline for the marketing plan implementation and request that we create a second kitchen design and costings to explore the possibility of extending the kitchen by relocating the water heater to provide more food preparation space for those slightly larger events such as weddings that the cottage is so well suited.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Councillor Ferguson. I'm very happy to second your motion, but I'll waive my right to speak. Is there anyone who wishes to amend the motion or to speak against it? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. That brings us to item 16.
Chair, which I'd like to move, please, with amendments that have been provided.
Yes, and thank you. And was there a
sorry.
disclosure from Councillor Clay in regards to item 16? Sorry.
There was.
Okay. You didn't need to absent yourself? Okay.
No,
Thank you.
I made the disclosure earlier. It's a non-significant, non-pecuniary.
Okay, no problem. I was just clarifying. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. And look, apologies in advance. I know this concerns new public toilets for 3 different parks, but I'm only going to talk about Weekley Park because it's in my ward and it concerns the subject of the amendment. But I'm sure this is excellent news for McNeely and Jarvie Parks as well, so I'm thrilled for them. Look, I just want to begin by acknowledging Councillor Clay, whose motion that she brought to council a few months ago has resulted in this commitment to deliver a new public toilet at Weekley Park. This is something that I know Councillor Clay, as a long-term resident of Stanmore and a regular user of the park, is really, really passionate about and spent a lot of time talking to residents of Stanmore about as well when she was knocking doors and standing on pre-poll and doing all of that election stuff, and continues to talk to a lot of her neighbours about as well. And I really, really commend her as a new councillor for delivering on this commitment that she took to the community. Weekley Park is the 4th largest park in the Stanmore-Drummond ward and the largest park in the suburb of Stanmore. But unlike those other 3 parks or any of the other parks, unlike any of those other 3 parks, it doesn't have a public toilet. And I think that is a really significant oversight when you consider just how frequently used and well-loved this park is. Anyone who's visited or walked past it, particularly on the weekends and after school, has seen that it's really frequently used by children who attend both of the local primary schools, Stanmore Public and St Michael's, and their families, as well as residents and visitors going to the main shopping strip on Percival Road. Unfortunately, at the moment, for those visitors, for those kids and their families, the closest toilets that they can use is either in the pub, in the Salisbury Hotel, or walking all the way down the street to the station, which is clearly not ideal and pretty inaccessible. So I think this is a really, really fantastic commitment to bring back the public toilet that was located there previously, that was removed, I think, about 12 years ago or 13 years ago under former Marrickville Council. And I really am pleased to see this come to fruition. 30 seconds, I promise.
Moved an extension of time by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by myself. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried.
The amendment just seeks to expand the site investigation for the location of the public toilet to include the current chess set location, which is near the corner of Percival and Albany Roads. Just because that's the site that is run down, it may be worth looking at whether we could utilise that site better as a public toilet rather than taking away green space that's elsewhere in the park. But I'm just keen to see it come to fruition, as I know Councillor Clay is as well. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, if I could please second.
Yes.
I'm always very happy to be a voice for toilet-going people in Marrickville, so it's very important that these two projects in Marrickville are going ahead, and I really want to thank all the residents who have over a long time advocated for this, particularly around McNeely Park. And I wanted to just specifically call out the leadership of the Midgebury Youth Resource Centre, who've we've had excellent conversations about how to move forward on this, and we'll just really appreciate that staff have committed to ongoing consultation there. But thank you so much, very excited.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there anyone who wishes to amend the motion or to speak against it? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously.
Chair, item 17 is me again.
Yes.
Also with amendments that have been provided. I'm really thrilled to read this report, and thank you to the staff for bringing it to this meeting. This report has come out of a motion which I brought to council in the last term, proposing a trial of increased servicing and cleaning of laneways off of Edinburgh Road. That motion was born out of a group of residents who contacted me, inviting me to take a tour of the laneways with them to observe the state that they were in, which, to be frank and to use polite language, was pretty disgusting. There was a lot of dumped rubbish, illegally dumped rubbish in those laneways. There was a lot of improper waste storage by local businesses, with rubbish frequently spilling from those bins onto the street, which attracted a lot of pests. There was pretty poor street sweeping and weeding, as well as a lot of antisocial behaviour, particularly in poorly lit areas at night. And in fact, one of the residents who met with me on that tour told me how her daughter's bedroom window faces into the laneways. And because that particular area was poorly lit, it was frequently used as a public toilet at night, which was literally just outside her daughter's room, which was pretty disturbing. This wouldn't be good enough for laneways anywhere in our LGA, let alone those sitting just off the side of our state's first ever special entertainment precinct, the centrepiece of live music and entertainment in the inner western Sydney, and a mecca for both residents and visitors to our community. So we commenced a 6-month trial of measures, including increased street sweeping and cleaning cycles, increasing inspections of laneways to manage illegal dumping, reaching out to local businesses to check for correct waste storage, and targeting them about their obligations, and providing both education and a regulatory approach as well, and writing to neighbours, reminding them about services to help with recycling and management of household waste that they were getting rid of, as well as a lighting audit too. I'm really pleased that the fruits of that trial has resulted in a proposal to maintain that increased service level. I think that's really, really excellent, as well as ongoing management of waste storage. Sorry, 1 extra minute.
I'll move an extension of time of 1 minute, seconded by Deputy Mayor Howard. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried.
Ongoing assessment of waste storage and working with local businesses who are non-compliant. I also just propose that we receive a report back and undertake and receive a report back on a replicated 6-month trial in other laneways that are adjacent to main streets that we've identified as future special entertainment precincts, which I've listed there. I think if it's good enough and been so successful in Enmore, there's no reason to think that the problems are only limited to Enmore, and we should look at replicating that success elsewhere. That pending approvals with Ausgrid, we seek to install the additional lighting in those areas that have been identified as having deficient lighting, that we continue those letterbox drops at 6-monthly intervals because, as the report notes, dumping of household waste does continue to be an issue in those laneways, and that we also write to all adjacent households and businesses, informing them of the good news. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Atkins. Do you wish to speak to it?
Only very briefly to echo what Councillor Smith has said again. I too receive many complaints relating to the laneways, which are perceived at least to be as a result of the special entertainment precinct. So I'm really pleased to see the suggestion for the 6-month trial in our future special entertainment precincts as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. There's no amendment to the motion. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. Item 18, Robert Street, Balmain. Councillor Ferguson.
Yes, moving with amendments, Mayor, which I'd like to speak to. I'd like to thank officers for this report. Robert Street is a key entry-exit point of the peninsula, as we heard this evening from our speakers, and it is a vital link for cyclists, especially those commuting to the city. However, it is a precarious stretch of road due to various factors, but particularly the high speeds that cars travel. It is also the street that houses our wonderful White Bay Power Station, where we are now seeing large-scale events with a high level of pedestrian access required. I live on a street with no footpaths, but I'd still say that Robert Street, in its current form, is substantially less pedestrian-friendly than my street. I'm really pleased that we have secured a $17 million investment from state government to make that precinct safer. But now it's imperative that we prioritise the establishment of a separate bike and pedestrian path from Mullen Street to Buchanan Street, so there is a safe, active transport route for the length of Robert Street. My amendment is requesting that we have a definitive timeline for the design so we can move forward with costings, funding applications and community consultation. My amendment also requests a further update once timing has been confirmed with Place Management New South Wales and Transport for New South Wales regarding community consultation on the proposed $17 million connectivity and accessibility upgrades to active transport links surrounding the White Bay Power Station. I'm quite excited to get feedback from our community on what their thoughts are around the work that we're doing in that space. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Ferguson. Very happy to second your motion and waive my right to speak. Is there anyone who wishes to amend the motion? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. That brings us to item 19, Flood Improvement Plan for Evan Jones Playground and Whites Creek Lane, Leichhardt. Councillor Scott?
Thank you. I would like to move the officer's recommendation with an amendment that's been provided. I thank the staff for working quickly and diligently on developing a flood mitigation plan for this area of Leichhardt following really heavy storms in February. I do note that what's come forward in the report is mostly surface mitigations that we can make, including securing the lid of the gross pollutant trap, putting some edging around the playground so that the bark chips don't get swept off into the gutters, but that the core work that would need to be done is a stormwater upgrade, and that is the responsibility of Sydney Water. And I thank the staff for identifying that as the issue. I'm requesting that we don't just do what we can do, but that we also write to Sydney Water and request an updated costing associated with upgrading that stormwater channel. I note that it was last costed in 2017, and that we seek to identify grant fundings that are available to us to apply for so that Sydney Water can do that work. And if there is preparatory work that we need to do, like designs and plans, that we identify what that work is as well, so that we can put ourselves in the best possible position to potentially get these grants done, and that the outcome of these two engagements, both with Sydney Water and with any grant funding organisation, be provided back to the council in August.
Thanks very much for that, councillor. Is there anyone who, is there a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Councillor Blake. Do you wish to speak to it? That's waived. If there's no amendment, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. Item 21, Trans Pride Australia.
If I can move that item, please, with amendments. So thank you so much. I do want to acknowledge Councillor Atkins for their really important work on this motion, and note that this report is coming out of their motion to perform a meeting. I really want to thank Trans Pride Australia for initiating the project too, and for speaking for a number of councillors, including myself. Really, this is advocating for greater visibility for trans and gender diverse people in the inner west. And look, it couldn't be more important at a time when trans and gender diverse people are under attack, often literally, all around the world, as well as here in Australia. Projects like this are affirming. They demonstrate just how much love and respect the inner west community has for trans and gender diverse people here and around the world. And it is critical that we get the location of this important piece of recognition right, and that we do it in a way that is consultative and meaningful. I've proposed two amendments which I've co-drafted with Councillor Atkins and have shared with Trans Pride Australia, and I've prepared that earlier. The first is just to propose that there be a further meeting between staff, Councillor Atkins and myself, just to discuss the further proposal around the crossing, and I do know that it would be important in that conversation, staff, just putting you on notice here, that we do discuss the reasons behind why Marrickville Library might not be an appropriate location, why you've made that recommendation. I think if we could just delve into that a little more, that would be really appreciated. And second amendment, that council provide an updated report to the August 2025 council meeting with 5 feasible options for a solidarity crossing, including the rationale for each option and a recommendation for decision. So, you know, that is really about kind of helping progress the issue, or the proposal rather. And look, just together, you know, I really think we can further demonstrate the strong commitment to and the solidarity with trans and gender diverse people that we demonstrate in so much of what we do here at Inner West Council on behalf of our community.
Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor. I assume Councillor Atkins will second the motion. Do you wish to speak to it?
Very briefly, thank you. And thank you to Councillor Howard for working with me, sorry, Deputy Mayor, for working with me. And thank you to the staff for their work on this. We all understand how difficult finding an appropriate spot is, but it's really important we find a way to do this. As I said at our last meeting, in relation to the resolution on our recommitment to values of diversity, equity and inclusion, visibility matters. It tells the community we have their back, and this was absolutely part of the feeling at the opening of the Camdenville Oval and the Pride Sports Hub on Saturday, which was an absolutely joyous occasion, I have to say, across the board. We keep getting more examples of why this is necessary, with recent offensive graffiti across the LGA targeting businesses and organisations that openly support diverse communities, whether queer, First Nations or other people of colour. So thank you all for considering this.
Thanks very much, Councillor Atkins. If there's no amendment to the motion, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. Is that all of the motions on the agenda outside of the confidential session?
No, we have item 25 to manage. I'm sorry.
And the urgency motion as well.
I've got item 25 as...
We had to remove item 25 from the list that we resolved earlier because Councillor Rossetti has a conflict of interest. If I could just check with the manager.
We did. I think it was on the list when we voted on it. Oh, you did? Okay. Just because you crossed it out, that's all. Okay, item 25, notice of motion, Haberfield Business Roundtable.
Thank you. I would like to move that motion and thank the member for Summerhill for her valuable engagement in developing this proposal that we host a roundtable with Haberfield businesses. Haberfield is a fantastic community of commercial properties and residents, and we really look forward to having them all together to discuss the ways that the Inner West Council and the state government can support them. Thank
you for that. Is there a seconder for the motion?
Thanks. I second this as a councillor with a passion for Main Streets, and Haberfield is a unique one. And so I'm very happy to support this motion and thank Councillor Scott for her work on it.
Okay. Is there anyone who wishes to amend the motion? If not, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. Does that conclude all of the items on the agenda aside from the confidential business?
Mayor, I have an urgency motion.
That'll need to be dealt with after the confidential session. Will someone move that we go into confidential session? Moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. I'll ask that the room be cleared and that the broadcast be discontinued, please. All good? Okay, the broadcast has been recommenced. With the business having been concluded, I'll declare the meeting closed. Thanks very much. Oh, shit. Okay. Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for Council's indulgence to move this urgent notice of motion. I have circulated to yourself, Mayor, and to all councillors. It's in regards to the urgent nature of this is there's been 2 racist attacks, graffiti attacks on Bumali Aboriginal Artists Cooperative in the last 2 weeks. We're bringing this motion forward as this is unacceptable. This is a welcoming community. And this sort of racism is not welcome in our community. The collective is comprised of predominantly female artists who have been left feeling very unsafe in the wake of these incidents. The Inner West Council can and should use our presence and resources to try and help this key local institution and community.
Councillor Blake, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'll just remind you that you're required to speak in the first place about why the matter should be considered urgently. And the process then is that it requires me to rule that way, and I'll indicate that I'm happy to do so. And then for councillors to vote, to choose to deal with it urgently, and then for you to speak to the substantive motion. So if you could just explain to us why it's urgent.
Thank you. Yes, sorry, as I said before, it's these attacks have happened in the last 2 weeks, and so it's important that we bring this forward, and so we move out in front of this, given the safety concerns of these attacks.
I'll just seek confirmation from the council officers about whether the procedural motion to consider the matter urgently requires a seconder.
Through you, Chair. Yes, it does.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Barlow. Do you wish to speak to it? Okay, that's waived. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. I will also rule that the matter should be considered urgently. Therefore, the motion can be tabled. And I'll go to Councillor Blake to speak to the substantive motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes. So, as I mentioned, sorry, just going back to my notes. So yes, these 2 incidents of racist graffiti have been painted on the studio by an yet to be identified person or persons. The collective is comprised of predominantly female artists who have been left feeling very unsafe in the wake of these incidences. The Inner West Council can and should use our presence and resources to try and help this key local institution and community feel safe. And I'd like to thank Councillor Scott for her amendments to this motion, which have been incorporated, further strengthening this motion.
Thank you very much for that. Is there a seconder for the substantive motion, seconded by Councillor Scott? Do you wish to speak to it? That's waived. There being no amendments, I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried unanimously. I believe that concludes the business of the meeting tonight, and I'll declare the meeting closed.